Whew. All right. How are we doing today? Oh, lordy lord. Man, it's just snowing like a motherfucker last few days. I just spent my whole morning shoveling snow. It's ridiculous. So I was kind of jamming to get everything ready for this at the last minute, but I gotta get some work done before the convention this weekend, so what say we do some spicy? What's going on, BM Nappy? BM Nappy, okay, yeah, sure, we can work with that. We welcome all kinds here. All kinds. As long as those kinds are generally having something to do with robots, the punching of robots, the shooting of robots, so on and so forth. For those of you who were with me last time, you'll recognize old Fire Hose. I have added... where's my control for focus? There it is. I added a weapon effect to his PPC that I'm going to be fooling around with a little bit today, trying to get to look decent. Flamethrowers are not really a particularly good way to deal with snow, contrary to what immediate common sense might tell you. Okie dokie. So I'm going to be probably... oh, I know what I need to do first. I even wrote this down. Here, I have one of the Hextech 3D printed hex-based desert-style hills. Right here. And I'm going to be working on this over the course of the next few hours as well, which means I need to start by putting down some texture. So I'm going to hit the ground running with some nice, easy texturing. Is there an echo? God damn it, I just redid all my sound too. There shouldn't be an echo. OTR, is there any chance you have multiple instances of the stream open? Because that definitely causes an echo effect. Every single time I go through my audio settings trying to find out just what I need to do. And the monitor makes me sound one way, and then when I do a recording, I sound another way, and I don't know if it's Streamlabs OBS. I'm not sure what it is. So I'm going to be settling in using some of this Vallejo earth texture, desert sand today, because this shit is my favorite. I use this to texture just about everything and do every single base, particularly at 6mm scale, because it has a really nice fine grit to it. So I'm going to start doing this. How's everybody doing today? Everybody hanging out? You painting anything? You printing anything? JT Cabral, hey, good to see you, man. Oh, just got your hills and desert stuff primed and ready to paint? Well, this is what I did for the set that I already have painted, so hopefully this will be helpful to you. And when I'm doing this, for the texturing the top of these guys, I really put this paste on real thin. Like crazy thin. Hang on, let me move this stupid box. I really only need this for airbrushing. We'll get back to that later. When I settle in for this Union dropship. And I put on just as little as I'm able to get away with, and then I scrape it over the surface. So it's as thin as possible, just leaving basically one layer of the fine sandy grit. And I find that's just about perfect, without turning your play space into sandpaper that's going to rub the paint off your mechs the second you lean them over. And just scrape it in every direction. And part of the nice thing about this being hex-based is you can be pretty sloppy and it won't get down in the crevices for the most part. And if it does, it really doesn't matter. Tacos! I fixed it? Okay. Well, I'm glad to hear that. Trimming down some monorail cars from Strato, alright? Hey, if you guys are working on anything, please, for my sake, Take a picture. Post it in the Discord. I'm always interested in what you guys are working on. It's motivating. It's very motivating to see other people getting work done, too. I'm doing this first because this texture is going to need to set for about 30 minutes. There may be a high-pitched whining coming from my ender here at some point, and for that I apologize. That it does that on the first layer of every, excuse me, of every print for some reason. I have another Desert Hex Hill printing up right now. It should be about a 3-hour print, so I'm kind of using that to time myself today because I have to go into town later and pick up yet more filament, which is crazy because I just did that the other day. But man, I really power through those rolls of filament, just like nothing, like nobody's business. Like they're going out of style, which they're not at all. If anything, they're coming into style. Hey, Greg. Thanks for the sub, man. Did I already do the Union? No, I have not done the Union dropship yet. I guess it could probably help to talk at the beginning about what I'm going to be doing over the course of a stream. I have a 3D printed Union dropship from the MWO 3D files, done by the very talented Tiny Robots in a Box on Thingiverse. It's not the most optimized print. It had some structural issues, but even with those, it actually came out pretty excellent. I think with a couple of little tweaks, it could actually print really easily. Oh, hey, what's up, Tiny Robots in a Box? I'll send you a message later on letting you know what. I know that where these landing struts, where they connect in here, this section, this is not connected to the rest of the body, so these legs tend to wobble in and out. I had to go on the inside and put a bunch of epoxy to shore them up. The landing feet that go below the doors, they broke off entirely. They just weren't attached. The toes and the pistons on the landing struts, the pistons are not attached at the body of the Union, and the toes are very weakly attached to the overall feet. And then some type of reinforcement on these little flaps that go over the jets would also be good, because a number of those broke off. I'm going to be painting them all as just like battle damage. So we'll get to that. And I have no plan, and I have no idea what I'm doing, so it's guaranteed to work. Absolutely guaranteed. Greg, I appreciate the Prime sub, man. Good to see you. You up to anything fun today? I am going to continue to endeavor to find the perfect balance between looking over at chat and actually doing work, because I know you guys want to see me actually working, but I love responding to every stupid little question you have, too. So somewhere in the middle is a happy medium, right? There has to be. Everything in moderation, particularly moderation. I really do use this sandy paste for everything. It just is such a fantastic fine dirt texture. And even if you don't want to paint it, like, I'm going to go ahead and put primer over top of the sandy paste when I'm done, because I want to color it very particularly, but even if you don't paint it, if you put this on after you've done your paint, and then put a wash in it, it looks really good. You can get, you know, anything that's supposed to be yellow, anything that's supposed to be sandy or deserty, put a brown wash on it, it gives it some nice depth. And yeah, you can always put down some PVA and sprinkle some sand on it, and I've done that for years and years and years, but this shit is cheap and simple and effective, and you get the same grit every single time. Aren't filament prints generally much bigger than resin? Generally. That has a lot to do with the, well, I mean, FDM printers in general tend to be larger than resin printers because of the nature of how resin printers print. Yeah, Greg, you actually turned me on to this stuff with your small screen on the work table with the chat. You know, Cursella, that's a good idea. I have a tablet. Maybe I could rig that up to have the chat right in front of me. Maybe I'll do that. Yeah, I'll give that a shot next time, and then maybe it'll be easier to bounce back and forth between the two. Pondburn, good to see you. Thanks for stopping in, man. I'll give you some more detailed feedback also if you want, Tiny Robots. Yeah, hanging over my paint racks. JT, what print is it? So FDM printers have the largest print areas because of the nature of how they print, and that means that the only thing limiting the size of an FDM print, a filament print, is how large of a print bed can you heat uniformly. And I mean, that's really it. How big of a frame do you have? How much space do you have at that point? Because after that, it's just motors moving a hot end around on that plate and depositing plastic. Whereas if you're doing a resin print, you would need an ultraviolet LCD screen the size of your actual LJ Dub. Thank you very much for the subscription. I appreciate your support. I appreciate you coming out. And, I mean, shit, man, you make this possible. But the resin prints tend to have to be smaller because you need a full UV LCD screen to cover the entire print area. Those are expensive. And I admit I do not know everything about the particulars and the electronics of resin printing. I just have a very general overview, enough to be dangerous. But I know that when you start upping the size of those screens, the expense and the availability becomes ridiculous. And then you've got to have a massive piece of FEP film, and you have a massive vat. And the larger your print gets, also, it tends to be more brittle. Resin is not as durable. Generally speaking, don't take that as a hard and fast rule. There are some very tough resins out there, some very resilient resins. I love that little resin printer, though, man. I use that for everything small. I just printed a Thunderbolt that, I want to say his name is Brian O'Connor. I should really be better with names, on the Battletech 3028 Facebook group, and I think he posted it on the others, but that's the one that he's most prolific in. Posted up a Thunderbolt where he took the MWO Thunderbolt files and he sort of Dougramified them. Took the Thunderbolt a little bit more back in the direction that it came from when it was originally in Fang of the Sun, Dougram. Added in some more classic details. In fact, I've got them right here. Hang on. Stupid focus. I'm going to be painting this guy in an upcoming stream, more than likely. Come on. I know you can focus. I've seen you do it before. Focus is my enemy. It's one of the biggest technical difficulties I have. We'll get there eventually. And he's hard to see because he's in just gray plastic, but he has the more traditional large laser on his arm. He's got the 3 round lasers going down his chest. His head is on the right side. His missile launcher has been lessened. He just looks a little more classic. I'm going to be painting him up soon. And I printed another one of those large lasers, and I put it on the CGL Thunderbolt. I think it looks fucking cool. This Thunderbolt is going to wind up going into Rampart Company, so when I get to the 3rd Lance, the final Lance, I'll be painting him. Yeah, also, Greg is absolutely correct. At the larger sizes of a resin printer, the first few layers that go down on a resin printer have suction forces on the FEP film because it's printing a huge flat piece of resin, and it has to pull that away from the FEP film the first time, and it attaches with suction. And you can already, even on a small one, you can hear it from across the room, this pop, the first time that the plate pulls up. And if you were to do a big one, man, you would just rip a fucking hole, a huge hole in the film. But I'm sure there are people working on overcoming that very difficulty right now. It's almost like there's a little bit of money to be made in 3D printing? I don't know. I'm sure it's just a fad. Nobody's really going to get into this whole easy home fabrication thing. And that should just about do it for the sandy paste. Yeah? A little bit of grit. A little bit of grit. So, I should have said, all that's been done to this piece so far, this was printed in blue, and I've sprayed it down with Duplicolor filler primer. That's the only thing I've done so far. And then I've added the sandy paste now. So I'm going to set this aside, and we're going to let it set for, you know, until I remember that I'm still working on this. And then it should be pretty well good. Pretty well set. And I shouldn't need any more sandy paste. LJ Dub, thank you very much for the kind words. That's all I really set out to do. The Battletech community has been incredibly welcoming, and there hasn't been a lot of content made for Battletech. Even though tabletop gaming and miniature painting is going through a bit of a renaissance at the moment, Battletech has still been fairly slow-moving up until fairly recently, so it's been nice to hit it in the ass with a cattle prod every now and then. MWO only kit bashes. Yeah, it's not everybody's cup of tea. It's not my cup of tea. I'm not a huge fan of a lot of the MWO versions of mechs in general. A couple of them, absolutely yes. In fact, a couple of them, I'm like, yeah, I prefer that to normal sculpts. But a lot of them I don't. Ooh, yeah. Getting ready to pull the extruder on my CR10 and put a Volcano hot. Ooh. That should be one hell of a quick printer, Greg. That'll be interesting. And yes, filler primer on FDM prints. I cannot recommend filler primer enough. If you're considering doing an FDM printed anything, and what's stopping you is the concern that somebody told you a while ago, man, you're going to have to do so much work to finish it, you're going to have to sand it and sand it and sand it, and you're going to have to put this goo in it, and then you're going to have to cast a fucking spell and hope that it works. Like, no. Honestly, you're overthinking it. The vast majority of applications for FDM printed models, like, I've done FDM printed, and damn it, I left them out in the game room. Oh well. I've done FDM printed mechs, actual mech figures, and if you hit them pretty good with filler primer, they don't look bad. The backs will wind up looking a little funky depending on how you print them, but considering you're printing them for 2-3 cents, how can you really complain about, like, that was where I was when I first started 3D printing mechs. I wasn't totally happy with the quality. And I just kept reminding myself that I'm spending 2 to 3 cents a miniature, so it can go ahead and look a little shitty in some parts, and I think I'll live. CR10 is probably going to be my next printer upgrade. Oh, and look, I actually got some light on the Ender 3 cam this time, so you might be able to kind of see what's going on. Maybe I should make it bigger. Well, you know, it wouldn't be a Thunderhead stream if I didn't do something boneheaded. Alright. The problem for your gaming friends, lack of good models and terrain. What you're saying right now, LJ Dub, is exactly what I was saying when I started designing my own 3D prints. And it is the reason that I started designing my own 3D prints, and why I started 3D printing other people's home design mechs. I'm not super well versed in the minute, detailed history of Iron Wind Metals and you know, Battletech. I know that they've been manufacturing their minis for a long time. I know they're the go-to guys. A lot of their sculpts are stuck in like 1980, and I think that's just the truth, and I don't think it's unfair to say. I think I've done all the shading I want to do on this guy. But you know what I'm going to do before I put down any colors? I'm going to do some dry brushing on it, and I know, dry brushing on an FDM print, but what about the print lines? Well, you know what? I don't care. So, we're going to do it anyway. Where'd my palette go? There it is. And my paper towel. Oh, I'll definitely call you out, Greg. I'm gonna call you out hard. Possibly modeling internals on the Union. I believe Wolverine DH was talking about modeling some internals on the Union. He even has some up on Thingiverse right now. I would probably print them separately as part of, like, if I was going to print this any larger, I would do it certainly in multiple pieces. And if I was going to do the interior components, because what the hell is the point of doing interior components on a dropship if it doesn't come apart anyway? If you can't open it up and look inside. But I'd be willing to talk improvements with you later if you're interested in some of my random suggestions. Which they are random. I'm going to be dry brushing some white on this guy to pick out some of the upper corners and details, and I'm using my usual US Art Supply titanium white because it's thick and nasty, and I wouldn't use it for anything else, but it's fantastic for dry brushing. Just the best. New Clan Invasion sculpts are looking good. You know, they are. All the new clan stuff is... Well, I mean, I don't feel like Clan Mechs had that much of a problem in the first place, though. Thick, nasty, white, sticky, a little salty, yeah? Not that I know. Not that I know. I don't eat my paint on purpose. Not on purpose. Damn it. I'm really trying to get into the habit of wearing gloves more often so I don't have such painty freaking hands. We went to my mother's birthday dinner a few months back at a really nice steakhouse here in Denver. And I got all dressed up and prettied up, which is unusual for me. And we go, and I'm sitting there, and I look at my hand, and I realize I have these bright, like, rainbow-colored streaks from where I was doing dry brushing. And I've been shaking hands with people and meeting my parents' friends and everything. I'm just like, ugh. Oh, God. What have people thought of me this whole time? So, you know, I'm trying to avoid that now. Now, I do not swear by any technique that I'm about to use. I'm just making this up as I go. Elevated monorail tracks? You know, I hear you. I hear you, JT. I do. Today was the first day in a while that I've had the morning, enough time in the morning to sit down and really spend some time digging back into my design, because that's been on hold for the last week or so while I've been ramping up a lot of this stuff and getting ready for the upcoming convention. But I got a lot of work done this morning, which is a number of new projects looking fairly promising, and I'm hoping to have them coming your way here shortly, including the raised highway and, yes, some monorail tracks which are in the works. The raised highway, it's one piece that's left that I want to be available when the main pieces release, and I've just had to rebuild it 2 or 3 times. But I think you'll be pleased with the final product. I know I'm pretty pleased with how it's coming out. I'm not being too careful with the dry brushing here. I really just want to create some basic highlights so when I come back over, and I'm probably going to spray this guy down with some Army Painter shade washes through an airbrush, which you may have seen me do before when I was painting the buildings for Trinity City. And I think it's pretty effective on big broad things like this, and it's why I'll do this dry brushing, because this will make a difference when I'm putting down a color that's that thin. And I have not gone to a huge amount of effort to clean up every little print artifact on this guy because, I mean, again, it cost me a few dollars to make, and my plan is to just leave this union at the convention. The tournament organizer, Daniel Cooley, he needed a dropship, so I printed this one up for him, and I'm just gonna give it to him. He can have it. It's all yours, buddy. Use it for future events. I consider this an investment in more local tabletop BattleTech, which I'm very much looking forward to. Because actually getting to play the game is nice every now and then. But organizing it is not something I want to do anymore. We have to support the people who are out there doing the work so we can play these games, guys. Otherwise, there's no one to play with and nowhere to play. Force field monorail tracks. Your Friday demo fell through? I am sorry to hear that. Did it fall through like you weren't able to make it, or did it fall through like on the store end of things? Ooh, that's too much. This is a big, nasty, messy dry brush, too. I anticipate doing another one of these pretty soon because I really do want to print a fully mech scale dropship and paint it. So I'm looking at this as kind of a test run to get used to the details on the MWO Union. And as for you viewers, I would anticipate seeing a much larger version of this on my desk in the incredibly near future. I'd like to have a dropship for my Merrick First Free Worlds Guard. Ah, okay. Did it? Did it die? Is it back now? Am I dead? Do I see dead people? Am I like Bruce Willis right now and I just don't realize I've been dead for a while? Spoiler alert for like a 20-year-old movie, by the way. If I'm dead and you're chatting with me, what does that make you? And this is the part where I've been around at least once and I've forgotten the parts that I highlighted already, so I'm just going to do them all again real quick. As needed. To taste. Here's an example of one of the pistons that just didn't even print. And none of them connected, so there's like a wad of epoxy at the base of each of these that's connecting them to the main body. It was not a difficult repair, it's just something that could be addressed in the STL so that it just doesn't happen. But we've got some really fantastic people in the community putting these files out for no real expectation of reward. Because, I mean, everything on Thingiverse is free. And Tiny Robots in a Box in particular, man, you've got so much cool stuff on there, and you've done your own kit bashes. What I appreciate about your kit bashes are that they're generally mechs that aren't available otherwise. You made, like, the MWO version of the Valkyrie, for instance, which I printed out and used one of those for our Battle of Takayad game that we had a few months back. That was great fun. Also, your Whitworth. I'm a big fan of the Whitworth that you made. I've got one of those painted up for the Comstar. I like the Whitworth. It's kind of an underappreciated battle mech. But it's got it where it counts. It's got long-range punch, it's got some good medium. It's kind of just an all-rounder that's hard to beat. Well, it's not hard to beat if you're playing for the clans. But then nothing's hard to beat if you're playing for the clans. That's kind of why the clans are stupid. I mean, really cool. Not the Valkyrie. I would swear that you did a Valkyrie. You know, the Whitworth is out in my game room, but here in a few minutes I'll probably take a break to grab something to drink. I'll go out and bring it in. Sure, no problem. Happy to show off. Alright, now to do the top of this stupid looking egg. Hit those a little bit. It's almost impossible not to get streaky on such a broad surface, but I'm gonna try to not make it look terrible. And as you can see, I mean, yeah, it's going to pick up some of the print lines. You know, you wind up with some funny little spots in here where it's picking up the shape, the angles from the actual polygons and it's printing, but I think people overthink it. It really doesn't look bad, particularly at average viewing distance when you're playing the game, which is kind of all I've been shooting for the last few times I've been streaming. Eventually, we're going to do some more detailed, more professional painting on here, but this whole last week I've really just been trying to get ramped up for Genghis Khan. And this is the kind of thing where, like, yeah, I'm looking to get this done inside of this stream to a point that I consider good enough. Maybe it was the Lancelot. I can't remember. Go ahead and post up your... Is Cat, are you in the stream right now? She might not be. She's the only person I've given mod powers so far. Go ahead and post the link over on the Discord. I would give you permission to post a link right now, but I don't have it easily available. My keyboard, that is. Oh. What's up, Sentient Pickle? Yeah, a little bit better timing. You got in when I'm getting started, as opposed to wrapping up. How about that? One day at a time, huh? You can see I'm being pretty rough and aggressive with this. It's really just... you know... don't overthink it. Maybe underthink it a bit, even. Yeah, that's what we're gonna go. That's gonna be my motto from now on. Paint like me. Underthink it. Seems like good advice. I've probably given worse advice at the very least. Now, the other step I could do on this is go ahead and apply a black wash after this wash, or after this dry brush, to even out the whites. Now, that is one thing that does kind of suck on these 3D prints, is that a wash on a broad surface is just going to go down into the print lines and look kind of terrible. Not super bad. You could get away with doing some of it on this, but it's not going to look great for panel lines, and I don't want to paint the panel lines individually, so I'm simply not going to. What kind of airbrush and compressor do I have? Well, if you look down in the Amazon Blacksmith link below the window, I've gone ahead and put up both of the airbrushes and the compressor that I am currently using. The compressor is part of a master airbrush set. It's not an expensive compressor. It's like among the cheapest of compressors, and mine has been going for several years now, just chugging away. It's only now that it's starting to reach a point where I feel like I need to replace it, because it's starting to have some issues. But the one for Master, as far as compressors go, is just fine, and the Posh Talon or the Badger 105 that I have down in that list are both highly recommended. And since it behooves me to say so, if you buy anything from Amazon using those links, they slip $1 into my G-string. Yeah, that's decent, yeah. I don't know what the hell dropships are supposed to look like color-wise. A lot of them are just gray. So I guess we'll probably start by graying up some parts. And then applying a bit of green, I'm thinking. Filler primer into a gloss varnish helps it. Yeah, there are definitely ways that you can, Hey, Mr. Redbird! Good to see you, man. How are you? Glad to see you here. Glad you could make it out, man. Mr. Redbird will be one of the individuals coming up to see me in June for WalesCon, which should be a good time. Either gray or black. I'm mostly going to be applying color on this guy by putting Army Painter Quick Shade tones through an airbrush. So I'm going to use black to establish some grays, and then I'm going to use Military Shader to establish some greens, and I'm not sure what else I'll do yet. Like I said, though, I'm not going to complicate this. I feel like that's such a waste. I might do green first, because I feel like I could do some cleanup with the black. Question is, do I want to use military shader or do I want to use green? I think I'll start with military shader and see how I like it, and then maybe we can trade out to green if I need something more vivid. Substituted for acquire class today. Ooh. Yeah, do feel free to elaborate, Greg, on what you mean. Alright. Move my airbrush up to a usable position. I'm going to check on the grit on these hills. That is... Ooh, that's actually just about dry. That didn't take long at all. I think that's pretty good. This stuff doesn't take long to dry. Oh, there's a little bit of it still wet. So if you put it on thick, like I kind of did on this one, it's hard to tell, but it is thick. It'll take a little while to dry, but these places where I've scraped it real thin, that's all pretty dry. That's all real nice and dry already. So I'm going to let it sit for a few more minutes, and then we'll come back to it. So, military shader. And this is Army Painter Quick Shades military shader. It's just, you know, green but more olive drab than their actual green. I know they do. I know they do. But freehanding... I'm not going to rule out freehanding ELH, their symbol on this dropship, but I can say that right now I've just got so much to get done before Sunday. I wish I had some ELH decals, but every time I've put in an order recently with Fighting Piranha, it's been backed up like crazy, and it's been hard to get. I wish so much that there were other options than Fighting Piranha. Not because Fighting Piranha is bad. Fighting Piranha, if you're wondering what I'm talking about, there aren't many companies that manufacture decals specifically for... Oh, did they really? JT Cabral, that's interesting. Ooh, maybe we should pick a name. That could be fun. Brain, no good memory thinking words. You know, whatever I was saying before, that. I forgot what it was. Somebody remind me what I was saying before I got distracted by JT. It was something really obvious. And now I can't think of it. I think I'll make the Ender 3 cam bigger next time, because it's hard to tell what's going on there, but it's finally well lit enough for you to see. Fighting Piranha, thank you very much. You know, Verg, that's probably a good idea, which is why I'm thinking about maybe, you know, I might airbrush some stenciled numbers on it or something. But Fighting Piranha, they do fantastic work. Their decals are of absolutely the highest quality I've ever used for, you know, you say that, Sentient Pickle. It's the printer. It is the freaking printer. I have made waterslide decals. My, First Free Worlds Guard is all waterslide decals that I printed myself here at home. None of them are anywhere near as nice. Anywhere near as nice as anything Fighting Piranha puts out. Obviously, it requires a very particular type of printer to get the job done like they do. What surprises me is that they're the only ones doing it. Like, really, the only ones doing it. You can find some individual sales on, like, eBay. But you're not going to find a storefront like Fighting Piranha. And yet the storefront for Fighting Piranha is stuck in, like, 1996. Like, their website is... And this is no knock against them. Obviously, they specialize in making decals. That they have a website at all is fantastic. And they have zero competition to go up against. But man, I wish they'd update that website into something with a reasonable order system that doesn't involve me having to send emails. Like, there's nothing wrong with having to put in an order by email, but there's no ordering system. I send the guy an email, and he communicates with me directly on the order. But I guess they're real small, so... Anyway, my point is, it's very surprising to me that they are the only people who do that. You would think there'd be more demand. Are they working on it? If they're working... Like, I have no problem patronizing Fighting Piranha. I love coming back to them, and if they improve their store, I'll just throw money at them. Yeah, that's the other part, is they're the only people licensed to make, in particular, Battletech decals and such. But even if somebody else just made, like, stencil decals, numbers and shit, I mean, I'd buy that too. Nope, I'm forgetting the step. I'm forgetting the step. As much as I love breathing acrylic into my lungs. One moment. Yes, they also do Cav decals. I have a bunch of their Cav decals. Of course, I have a bunch of Cavs, too. Ah, lies. You didn't upload the Argo. I don't know how interested I am in printing an Argo, but it is a cool ship. I do like the storyline of HBS Battletech quite a lot. Alright. That's pretty olive, but it's kinda, I just, you know, I don't want this thing to be vivid. I want it to just look military. And this olive drab does look very military. Damn it. Quit sputtering. And you kind of have to do a few passes for your color to start showing up, and it looks a little bit more faded on the camera than it looks in person. But this is starting to work out pretty decently. I'm going to do some more dry brushed highlights on it after I get it laid down. You really got to do 2 or 3 passes. That's kind of what I like about putting washes like this through an airbrush, is I can put the color down real gradual, and I can vary it pretty easily because no single pass is gonna... I mean, it's just like using a really, really, really thin paint, which is already what you should be doing when you're airbrushing anything. But this in particular lets me kind of be fairly careless and still get a reasonably good looking effect. Most of the time. Well, I'll be honest, most of the time. Sometimes it doesn't work out. Oh, BM, thank you very much for the follow, man. Really appreciate having you guys here. I'm just excited that people want to come out and watch me do this crap, man. If you're having a good time, you know, that's just a bonus. I'd be doing it anyway. Alright, I'm getting close to finishing off this coat. This is also kind of a reasonable way of getting the same effect that you would get out of a wash on a 3D print. Or a glaze. It's a good way of doing... I mean, that's all I'm really doing is glazing through an airbrush right now. And occasionally sputtering things that I don't mean to be there. But you know, you can't win them all. Gotta handle this thing so much, I'm gonna have to take a break to let some of these parts set. But I'll move over to the hills in that case. Oh, that's it for that cut. Let's get a little bit more military shader. Philip Sheridan, John Buford, and Edna Chaffee. Oh, Chaffee. Good old Chaffee. It makes sense that they would name their dropships after officers like that, given their genesis. The ELH is probably the mercenary unit with the closest thing to a tie to the real Old Earth military through the SLDF. Still not much of a connection. Well, my military shader's a little bit chunky because I haven't used it for a while. I'm really just demonstrating the best habits. Is your paint chunky? Just give it a little chew. I like my paint like I like my peanut butter. Chunky. And delicious. And with a little bit of honey, maybe. Like right there, I'm spraying literal chunks of this shader because I did not pull that out first, so, you know. Hooray! Let me do a little bit of work clearing that. There we go. That's improved anyway. Probably shouldn't just rub that on there. I think I'm going to do this ring in a gray or maybe a blue. I don't know. We'll find out. Who knows? Who makes plans before they paint things? Nerds, that's who. We don't tolerate nerds around here, guys. This is Thunderhead Stream, excuse me, and we're pretty cool. And if you're a nerd, you know, you better keep it to yourself or we'll beat you up. We're doing serious stuff. Having serious conversations. That is a good amount of green, I think. So I want to do that gray, I want to do that gray. Why am I not using the turntable that I own? Because it's me, that's why. We don't do things the easy way. We don't take hints, we don't learn lessons. We just bash our head against our projects until they're done. It is difficult to tell on the camera, it is not catching the green as much, but I'll take some better pictures later so you can kind of get an idea for how it's coming out. When I contrast it against some other colors, it'll also look better. I have to put some black down in there. Yeah. And then a few extra coats just to go over and make sure I didn't miss anything, which I'm certain I did. Darken up a few spots. It's pretty good for an initial coat. It'll get some highlights later too. Oh, there's a strut that I missed. Yeah. It seems like all the parts I want to do in green. That's pretty good. Alright, I'm going to set this aside for a little bit to let that green set. Oh yeah, get some of those chunks out. Good lord. Note to self. Buy some new shades. I literally bought this this bottle of military shader at the game store that at the time Greg the Salt Miner was running in San Antonio, which was some time ago. Gonna do carbon scoring? I might come in with some black and do some little details like that. I very well may. Details like that can always come like after the weekend too. But not for me because I'm giving it away, but still. We'll be doing another dropship in the future, like I said, and we'll probably go a lot more detailed on it because it's going to be mech scale. This is so we've got something on the field this weekend that looks vaguely dropship-like. I could have gone smaller, I could have gone easier, but I like the MWO one. I printed this one out about the same time. It's just less exciting, less impressive. No hating on the Union. On my camera, but not the focus cam. Yeah, you know. One day you'll tune into this stream and you'll look at what I'm doing and all the colors will be represented properly and I will have done the work that I need to so that you can see what's happening, but that is not this day. That is not this day. So this is pretty much set up. I'm going to go ahead and just slather black primer all over this. Or not primer. I mean, you could do primer, just black paint. You're just laying down black. Hey, if you can see the green, then that's fantastic. The other part of this is that the monitor I'm using, that I can see the stream through over here, is an old piece of shit monitor, so it probably isn't showing me everything properly. If you guys can see the green, then I'm happy. So, what I do with these is I always start applying the shading from the bottom because this is where I'm going to want the shadows to be heaviest and where I want to make absolutely sure that I don't miss any, because if there's a gray or white area under a cliff, when I'm done, it's going to look stupid. So, get all the undersides, and then you can come back at it from the top. I kind of always start with a lower angle just because I know that's where I want my shadows to be heaviest. And I never want to miss it. And every time I lay down shading, I come back later and I find spots that I missed, so I just double up on these. Get all these undersides. And the nice thing about painting stuff like these hills is you can be real rough with it and ignore pretty much all your mistakes, which, as we know, is one of my favorite things to do, ignoring my mistakes. Because it's supposed to be rough anyway, so who gives a shit? I'm going to be coloring this almost exactly the same way that I colored the dropship, but with a different shade. I tried a few different ones, and I really like the mid-brown for the desert colors from Army Painter. It's just a wonderful red-brown that works really, really well. That's pretty good for that angle. I think I can probably come at it like this. I'm gonna use my stupid little turntable because it's actually helpful for stuff like this. Oh, I can see a spot that I missed already. Let's get in there and fix it. Right in here, this little crevice. And in there. Yeah, that's pretty good. Now, something to bear in mind when you're laying down shading on top of this grit. the textured grit like this, you've got to hit it from a couple directions, otherwise you're going to wind up with one side shaded and one side not shaded. What's on the ender, that would be another Desert Hex Hill that is printing right now. That one should be done by the end of the stream. You should be able to watch that one go all the way through. Yeah, that's better, Tiny Robots. Now we know who you are. So I'm kind of going to hit each of these hexes with my black from one direction, and then I'm going to shift and I'm going to come at it from another direction. I put this on pretty thick just because, you know, I want some good deep shadows, because I'm going to lighten it up from here. I know we got a couple people working on painting these hills right now, what with us having really just released them very recently. So I hope this is helpful. This is really just exactly what I did for the set of hills, excuse me, that you have probably seen, the display hills that are posted on Steel Warrior that I post pictures of periodically. This is exactly what I do to get them to look like that. The only thing I'm probably not going to do on the stream today is actually flocking them, but that's pretty easy to do. And you just want to rotate it around to make sure that you're not leaving any light spots. Nice and uniform as much as you can. Say as much as you can, because you're gonna miss some little spots, but again, it doesn't matter. It don't matter. None of this matters. That could be my new motto for painting. Just embrace nihilism. None of this means anything. So what are you fretting about? And I'm just going to rotate around. Make sure there's nothing that stands out as something I obviously missed. Yeah, it's pretty good. It's pretty good. All my shading is good. The next step from here, after I let this primer, or rather just black paint, set for a while, not too long, is I'm going to come in like I do with my other models with some white from an upper zenithal direction, and just apply some shading mostly to the lower portions of the rock faces, and then to the very tops. And then after that has had a chance to set, then I'll come back in with some of the mid-brown Army Painter shader and do exactly what I'm going to be doing to the rest of the dropship. Though, different color for the dropship, to be fair. I think that's pretty good. That's pretty good. Let me run some cleaner through my brush. Still printing the hills. The hills take a while to print. The hills occupied my printer for a good long time once I got them done. But, you know, once they're done, they're just so damn nice to have. And the thing I really like about 3D printing hills like this is if you find one that you like, make a bunch of it. Turn it around from a different direction, put it right next to itself, and it looks completely different. I haven't seen these ones that you're talking about. Post them up in the Discord. You know I love to see stuff. Alright. So now I want to do a more... I'm thinking maybe a blue-black on all these other parts. Just to make them look kind of mechanical. Yeah. And if I'm gonna do that, what do I want to use? I don't just want to do black to make them dark gray. I want to go with a blue. So I'm going to mix myself up a glaze, really just a thin paint to put through the airbrush. Damn it, where the hell are my pipettes? There they are. Giant bag of pipettes. All the pipettes you could ever need. And then some. Who the hell needs this many pipettes? Even I don't need this many pipettes. It's crazy. I am taking some of a very familiar color for those of you who've been watching me paint so far. P3 Coal Black. Which of course it won't focus on, because why would my camera focus? That would be expecting way too much. You can see it at that distance. P3 Coal Black, alright! And into that I am going to put just a tiny little dab of actual black paint. And then I'm going to put in a good amount of medium, matte medium, and flow enhancer. I was moving, got stopped by a cop, had a hacksaw plastic sheeting and zip ties. What did you tell them? What are those? These are my tools? I have to have my tools! I have to have my tools! Alright. Actually, what I just did was dumb. Because I want to put this in my airbrush, but thankfully I didn't put much paint in it. I know better. When I'm mixing something to go on my airbrush, I use these little cups because I can just pour it right into the reservoir instead of my palette, which obviously I can't. But I'm going to just see if I can't use the pipette to rescue some of this paint. Because it should be good enough still. And I'm going to fail miserably. Wasting paint with Thunderhead. Nobody can waste paint quite like I can. Just drink it. Why the hell not? I really don't want much of the actual paint because I'm going to thin this down quite a lot. Yeah, I can imagine that was awkward. Having to explain, no officer. I'm not planning on stuffing the next person I meet into my trunk, it just looks that way. Flow Aid. Matte Medium. And before anybody asks me, what proportion are you mixing of these aids and mediums? The answer is, really whatever looks right. Anything at all. Just kind of make it up. It's kind of a to-taste sort of arrangement. What am I missing? I need some black. Some black paint. Mixed in. You can see what I'm going to wind up with is really just like a very, very dark, slightly bluish gray. Maybe a little bit more black. Even a little bit more black, because this is going to go on real thin. And it's going to appear very blue. I think. And wild guessing is the foundation of everything that I do. Carl Zursky. Not familiar. Not familiar at all. Not at all. So I know we got at least one person here printing some of the Hex Hills. Anybody else got anything on their printer today? Gave away a set of the Hex Hills last time. to Roland TG from the Discord. I'm looking forward to seeing him get some of those worked up. Nothing pleases me more than seeing my work pop up on somebody else's desk. Makes me feel powerful. Alright, well here's hoping that's thin enough. I think it is. If it isn't, I can always thin it a bit more. It's pretty thin. If I lay it on carefully, it should work. But when's the last time I did anything carefully? I mean, really. It's just not me. Yeah, if I lay it on real thin, it should do just fine. So, let's start at the bottom in case it looks like shit. I like it. I think it'll work. I just gotta lay it on real nice and easy and then come back in with some highlights and it'll be good. I think the blue is gonna look better next to the green than just a gray-black. Doing this pretty dark, but I'm going to come back in and highlight it. I think it'll look okay. I think it'll look okay. Oh, God. Gee whiz, I sure do hope so. Such confidence. Oh, that's a bit thick. Yeah. Yeah, I like it. I've been a real fan of blue-black for metals lately. I'm not really entirely sure why. Coal black really appeals to me for some reason, though. Blue blacks instead of brown blacks, you know? I'll come back in and do the landing struts in just a minute. There's some messed up little thruster nozzles on here and such. I'm going to come back in and make them look like they got shot. And by make them look like they got shot, I mean I'm going to haphazardly sponge damage over top of them. It's coming together reasonably. There we go. A little bit there. Rotate again. And we've come full circle. I like that color combo. With some highlights, I think it'll pop real nice. I'm going to do the inside of the door in the same color. Some of these details here. And then I'll do the landing struts the same. That's pretty dark, but oh well. That's kind of better. There's some random little stringies I'm going to pull off later. I did not... There were a bunch of strings. I spent a bunch of time cleaning them up, and you just still wind up with some. No big deal. They'll come right off. get the struts. I'll do a little bit on the inside of the strut well, too. Probably come in with an actual black later to finish that off, just so it looks like it's a void space instead of painted blue. Yeah, Kat, that's a big improvement, isn't it? You like the synthwave? It's good for painting, too. I go through phases in my music, you know? I think everybody does. Sometimes I'll be on a serious metal kick when I'm painting. I'll be like, fucking put on Powerwolf, yeah, let's go! And then other times, I just want something kind of nice and light that'll keep me moving. And in that case, I go for something like some synthwave. I'm going to do these little nubs in the same color. Just real careful, like. I think these are meant to be sensor blisters, or maybe places where lasers come out. I don't know. I know these things are supposed to have lasers. I'm not sure where they're supposed to go. They just kind of stick out of the old ones. So I'm going to go with these open up like an iris and lasers come out. That sounds reasonable. Did they ever show where the lasers are on these things in MechWarrior Online? Not that I'm necessarily a fan of the giant ones that used to stick out of the old design. Oh, don't stick your finger in it, Chris. I mean, you're going to do that anyway, but try not to anyway. At least pretend like you're trying not to ruin everything. Yeah, sure, that'll do. Nipple turrets. Glowing red damage points that Leon Kennedy must shoot. Yeah, that or every single boss weak point from, like, Contra. Like a big skeleton shows up and opens its mouth and there's a big flashing orange ball in it. And you're like, oh yeah, I shoot that, obviously. What else would I shoot? This is going on a little thicker than I had intended it, but, you know, we can adapt. Adapt and overcome, as they say. What I think I may do for these parts that I've laid down this coal black is come in with the airbrush with some wolf gray to do some zenithal highlights on them, because there are some big broad areas that won't be hard to hit with the airbrush, I don't think. And that'll really make this dark blue look better. So here we are after 2 passes with the airbrush and a little bit of dry brushing. Now, let me make sure I've hit everything I want to before I go wasting the rest of this that I've mixed up. Because I suspect that I've missed something. Yes, I have. Of course I have. I always miss something. This is me we're talking about, isn't it? Of course it is. We're always talking about me. That's what makes me so charming. Alright. I'm going to dump this back in my little cup just in case I want to use it again later. And save that, and ideally not drink it. Though I make no guarantees. This is not the most comfortable mask I've ever worn. I don't know what, it keeps getting my nose for some reason. I'm going to set this guy aside and let what I just did settle a bit. You can see the color scheme coming together, very simple. Thank you, Verg. Much appreciated. This should be okay to accept some white. 12 medium laser, 5 large lasers, 6 AC5s, 6 LRM-20s, and 3 PPCs, and they're all hidden in the mysterious nipples. The nipples of mystery. Stare into my nipples of tomorrow. No? No, what was that, Rocko's Modern Life? Well, I'm going to use another of these little cups because I want to thin this white paint. And it's just easier to do in a cup ahead of time. I have no idea where the LRMs are. I have just no clue at all. Pawn burn with the logical save. With the hand wave of mastery. They're behind some panels, and the panels open up and the missiles come out. What do you, not watch anime? Come on! I want this to be quite thin. That should be pretty good. But the question, pawn burn, is which panels are the missiles behind? Because I couldn't fucking tell you. I'm not even going to pour all this in. I'm going to save myself some in case I want to use it later. And I say that, and what's going to happen is I'm going to forget these are here until I just flail my hand over there later and just punch the paint all over the damn desk. It's going to be amazing. Too bad you guys won't be here for that. That is a nice thin white coming out. Panel lines from the printer are just missile panels. I like the way you think, sir. You are very clever. You're a gentleman and a scholar. So, now for the first round of shading on this hex hill, I'm just coming at it from a real high angle for the most part. You don't want to overdo it. You want to get the tops pretty good. Mostly you want to get the bottom half. It's kind of hard to see on this camera with the angles that I'm using. Hang on, let me rearrange this slightly because I want to use a real shallow angle, but I don't want to blast paint all over my desk. And I just need to reconfigure slightly. There we go. Now I can spray with impunity. I think I'm going to use this turntable so I don't wipe any of my own paint off. Like I said, just coming at it from a fairly steep angle. It's difficult to see without I've got you looking straight down, but I'm angled at it in such a way that I'm hitting right there where you can see, and also towards the bottom. And I'll turn it sideways so you can see what I'm doing here in just a minute. An idea for a cool piece of spaceport terrain? Please regale me. I'm always in the mood to hear cool ideas for terrain. You know me, I love terrain. Now you don't want to be too shy with this. You want a good amount of white laid down. I start off being a little shy and picking the areas where I want to have more shadows or more highlights. But you want a fair amount of white because you're going to be coming over it with another color afterwards. So you want some shadows, but you don't want too many areas that are just like black. Or maybe you do, I don't know. You know, you're painting your own stuff, you can do it any way you want. This is going to be undershading for the dirt too, so I try to make sure I get some a good amount of white on the texture. The one place you don't want to get white is on the undersides of these little tops. But you'll be hard pressed to do that if you paint it from an angle like this. Kind of try to paint some, when I get multiple hexes like this, try to put splotches of color that cross from one hex to another. It kind of helps to sell that it's one surface, and the hexes are a gameplay aid rather than, you know, they're an abstraction. They're not supposed to be real. And these pieces are definitely meant to straddle the line between good looking and abstract. See, what I've got mostly here is a gray once it's had a chance to dry, so I'm going to come back in and do another pass on almost everything. You want it brighter than you think. The first few that I did real dark, and they just didn't come out the way I'd hoped. There's also going to be some dry brush getting done on this. Basically, if the pro painter that hangs around your game shop disparages a technique as totally lame, as Chaotic Harmony would say, that's just base coat, man. That's base coat. If there's a technique that is disparaged by a nerd, I use it extensively. Unless it's a technique that I disparage, in which case I don't. Because I have to define myself through the things that I dislike, like all nerds. That's looking not too bad. You really don't want as much black as you might think you do here. It's tempting to leave some for some heavy shadows, but it's just going to be black. Unless you come in here with a solid color instead of a shade like I'm going to do, they'll be nearly invisible. That is pretty good, I think. Oh, of course I went ahead and overdid it then, at the end. Anything worth doing is worth overdoing, I always say. Yeah. Alright. I'm going to set this aside and let that set for a little bit. When you're airbrushing, it's important to have a couple things you can kind of rotate through, because you're going to wind up with some pieces that need to sit for a little bit before you can continue working on them. I'm going to take this opportunity to put some white on Firehoses' PPC effect here. I'll be real careful because I already painted the rest of the figure and I don't want to get any on that. Oh, that was almost too much, but no, that'll work. That's pretty good. Alright, I think I can work with that. If it'll focus. No focus? Fuck me, huh? What kind of an asshole am I expecting my camera to focus? Just not at all. You're not even gonna try to autofocus. What the fuck? Fine. You know what? You're fired, motherfucker. There we go. So you can see what ideally will be a PPC lightning bolt shot coming out of his nipple cannon there. That should be interesting. Did the Star League have the tech to build a space elevator? I would say yes, almost certainly. It's interesting you mentioned that, JT Cabral, because I have 3 different versions of a hex-based space elevator that I've been playing with for the last couple of months. I do intend to release a space elevator in the near future as part of the next set that I'm working on. And it is a PP cannon, Cat. That's exactly what it is. But the space elevator answer is a slightly complex one in the form of they don't need space elevators for the most part, because in Battletech they have clean fusion engines that can lift huge amounts. So it's literally cheaper in Battletech to take a big spheroid hunk of fucking metal and land it on the planet and just unload whatever the hell you need, because taking off and landing doesn't require a resource that's particularly scarce. Now, this is not to say that they would not have space elevators. For the most part, on most planets, they wouldn't. But if you ran into a planet that had... Yes, there are terraformers. That's something that does happen, Tiny Robots. If you had a planet with... What's it called? Kessler Syndrome? Where there are so many pieces of orbital debris in orbit around the planet that they have begun to collide and create smaller pieces of orbital debris. The theory behind Kessler Syndrome, and I think we've observed it in a few exoplanets, is that it effectively renders it impossible to land on or take off from a planet. In theory, in that case, a space elevator would make sense. It still wouldn't be perfect, because I think most space elevators would be annihilated by Kessler Syndrome too, but, it's close enough. That's the only situation I can really think of in Battletech where a space elevator would probably be something that they invested a lot of time and energy into. But the real answer is you can do whatever the fuck you want, because it doesn't matter. Alright. I'm gonna use some thinned down Wolf Gray. I really want it very, very thin. Oh, excuse me. Yeah, that could work. I haven't touched Satisfactory in a while playing Win. I know that they've released a lot of stuff since the last time we played, and I would love to dig back into it. Particularly now that there's, trains and shit to do with the trains. Yeah, Outreach. Yeah, that would probably make some sense. I'm not sure what the terraformers would look like. When you say, what would a giant terraformer look like? You know what I think of? I immediately think of aliens. I think of the atmosphere processor on LV-426. That thing was fucking huge. And that makes me think that if you were enterprising, you could make a whole table built around an atmosphere processor. It'd be big, obviously. But it'd be cool. Huh? Yeah. Oh, Hardware Studios has you covered, huh? Hardware makes a lot of really good stuff. I need to set up a little bot reminder to say this, but if any of you are enjoying the stream and are not really regulars to Twitch, but you have Twitch Prime because you have Amazon Prime, you have one free subscription that you can give away from Twitch Prime. And if you decided to use it on me, I would be, eternally grateful, or at least grateful for the next 5 minutes or so. something I might want to take a look at in the Discord 3D printing channel, please do. I will take a look. Just like that play and win. Yeah, just like that. This guy. Subscribe now, says Cat. Do it. Do it, you wage slaves. I mean, please support me. Oh, hell, what did I just do with my... If you support me enough, I might become organized. Who knows? Blurrufuga. Blurrufuga. I don't know how the hell to say that word. Is that like clearing your throat? I should be like, oh, thank you for subscribing. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it, guys. I'm making this up as I go, but you guys make it a little bit easier for me to make it up every day. Well, that print up there is getting there. It's almost halfway along. Do you like that? How this time you can actually see what's going on the Ender Cam? It's amazing. I need to make the view a little bit bigger, I think, but the lighting is vastly improved. If I can toot my own horn for a moment. Ooh, Thunderhead didn't clean his airbrush before he went on stream. Ewy, ewy, ewy. Alright, let's mix this up a little bit. And it should come out a blue-gray. Which, yeah, that's a decent blue-gray. Yeah, get a couple and clean them. Plastic fast food soda cups with the narrow end towards the bottom, I do though them. I appreciate the thought, Sentient. You know, don't even worry about it, man. The fact that you're here, hanging out, chatting with me in the chat room, watching me make an asshole out of myself with an airbrush, that's all the sentient pickle I need, man. Video of a mod that one of the dudes made for MW5, this mech scale union dropship. Man, so I saw something just today about MechWarrior 5 putting some more emphasis on allowing player mods, and that's going to get me back into that game, because I haven't really touched it since it came out. But I think mods are what's going to make that game excellent, instead of just... Well, you know, people have different opinions on it. I'm not a huge fan of its release date. Just laying down some highlight and trying not to overdo it. I could have gone thicker with my original black, but oh well. I think I'll live. I assume this is the deflector dish array like you would find on a Sovereign or Did I just forget what class of ship the Enterprise C was? Galaxy class. There we go. Galaxy class starship. That's the right universe, right? Star Trek and Battletech are basically interchangeable. That's what I tell people. And then they find out I'm lying and they never trust me again. That works pretty decently. I like that. The C was a Constellation class. D, thank you very much. 1701D was the first Galaxy class. That is accurate. What was the one that they destroyed the D in a movie, didn't they? And they replaced it with the E, which was that the Sovereign class? I don't think they have any tech. In Battletech, they're lucky that they've got Battletech technology. In Battletech, they're lucky that they have fucking servos that work. I prefer the version of Battletech where most technology is regarded as damn near magic. Or at least, if not magic, I don't know how to build it anymore. Oop, that was way too much. Oh, I'm gonna have to take this mask off in a bit. It is giving me the sniffles like crazy. Because I remember the Sovereign class starship looked fucking goofy. And only existed because those movies wanted to be action movies so bad they could taste it. They were like, what can we do? I don't know, let's take the ship that everybody loves and blow it up for no goddamn reason. This is what happens when you let Counselor Troy run the ship, you know? I'm not saying that she's a bad driver because she's a woman. That's not what I'm saying at all. I don't believe that. I'm saying she's a bad driver because she's a Betazoid. Who the hell is trusting Betazoids as captains of ships? They can barely manage their own emotions. Those Betazoids are so emotional. Oh, God. Just hysterical. Welcome to Sci-Fi Misogyny with Thunderhead. Phased radar array. Oh. Well, the mask is very clean, Pondburn. It's literally just the mechanism at the top that clips on my nose that keeps messing with the bridge of my nose and making me sniffly. And I think it's the fact that I have a beard that keeps pushing it down. If I were to shave my beard, it would fit better. But what the hell kind of an answer is that? I'm just going to give up? Shave my facial hair? Admit defeat at the hands of a piece of fabric? Sacrifice my manhood on the altar of comfort? I think not. Almost all the way around. There we go. Now I'm going to get in here and do a little bit on these landing struts, but not too much. Not too much, just a little bit. Just a bit that I can work with there. That's pretty good. It's two of them. Some of these landing struts are missing toes, like I was talking about earlier. I'm just gonna sponge some rust around there and be like, I got shot. Theoretically, this is an Aerodani Light Horse dropship at the end of the campaign into the Kerensky cluster to take Huntress from the Smoke Jaguars, so I think it can be a little rough around the edges. Let's have a look. Huh? It's coming together decently, don't you think? And again, it's not a perfect paint job, but in broad strokes, and for the fact that I've done it in about an hour and a half, I'm going to do some more highlights on it, a bit of dry brushing in a few spots, and then I'll probably do some battle damage and such Yeah, it's a big one, isn't it? It is. It is more effort keeping it shaved. Having a beard means I can forget about it for long periods of time. Alright, so now I'm going to take off my mask for a few minutes because I'm going to do some dry brushing. Yeah, there's some positional thrusters I could put scorch marks under. And no, this one is not mech scale. It's bigger than average map scale, but it's nowhere close to mech scale. I'm going to take a second and wet my whistle. Ah, cold tea. That's where it's at. Not iced tea, mind you. Cold tea that I meant to drink while it was hot, and then I just forgot to. It's disgusting. I'll take a look at that video here in a bit, Tiny Robots. Excuse me. The beer is not warm. It's maybe getting close to room temperature, but it's still well within drinkability standards. Particularly if your standards are like mine, which is to say somewhere near the floor. Alright. Of course I didn't. Of course I didn't treat my dry brush well. I treated it like crap. Oh well, I've got another one. To be fair, this dry brush that I treat like crap I have had. Well, let me put it this way. Here's another one that I'm about to use that I got around the same time. That you're not going to find this one anymore from Games Workshop. They don't make brushes in this style, and they haven't for many years. You're not wrong, JT. You're not wrong at all. You've got a real point is what you've got. But, you know, your hat covers it up, so... You know, excuse me if I'm wiping my nose. That, the mask really just, it tickles my nose and it makes it run. It's a weird problem. The weirdest thing about it is that it doesn't really happen that much when I'm not on stream. Maybe it's psychosomatic. Who knows? Back to my U.S. Art Supply titanium whites. Oh, JT, you're so funny. You've got so many jokes that you tell, and they're so good. They're good jokes. I'm being very serious and honest. Every inch of shelf space taken up by an IPA is space that could otherwise be occupied by a good beer. I know I liked you, Sentient Pickle. I just wasn't totally sure why. I mean, I thought maybe it's because you're a pickle and pickles are delicious, but I don't want to eat you, so I feel like that pokes holes in that theory. But now I know. It's because you fucking hate IPA, just like I do. I don't hate IPA. I like IPA sometimes, once in a while, rarely, not really ever. But, you know, I say that I do, and that's what matters. So, I'm just going to be dry brushing white again onto the 3D printed hex hills, using a downward motion from the top to the bottom, trying to catch upper surfaces. And trying to put some special focus into differentiating what is largely just a built-up white along the bottom. And trying not to rub any of the paint off the top, so holding it very gently. Now, if I were doing this any other time, I'd probably just wait a while for this white to set so that I wasn't in danger of rubbing any off. But I'm here on stream, and so I'm not going to do that, because fuck that. I'm just charging right ahead to prove that it can be done. Not just from top to bottom on this, it's also going to help if at the very bottom you go a little bit side to side. Actually, a lot of times what I'll wind up doing is my stroke will just become a diagonal from one direction, like the top right down to the bottom left. I find that's a pretty effective. Lighter, less heavily hopped beers, or, ooh, I'm a fan of sours. I've really become a fan of sours. Pickle beer. Ooh. I enjoy amber ales. I'm a big fan of amber ales, but they're kind of middle of the road. It's hard not to like them. It's like saying, I'm not a fan of lager. Everybody's a fan of lager to some degree. Particularly when you're brushing into like these crevices here, it helps to just kind of go across, because you're really just trying to pick up the sort of striations and hoodoo marks. Hoodoo marks! That's a phrase, right? Those are words that humans use. And I'm not worried too much about how dry brushed it looks at this point, because we're going to come back in with that mid-brown and airbrush it over this. And it evens everything out pretty decently. But I want some really bright white parts in here. Not a lot, but some. And again, the really nice thing about all these things being 3D printed is, if you're feeling lazy, just be lazy. Because you know what? If you're able to 3D print these yourself, and you don't like the one that you finish, just make another one. Just make another one and paint that one the way you want it to look. Experiment. Have fun. This whole thing is just not much plastic. This is a few dollars worth of plastic. Most of the time, when you're buying these from people, when you're buying 3D printed parts, understand that the actual material is a very small amount of the cost. Most of the cost that you're paying for is effectively the maintenance on the machine and the time that the 3D printer is putting into keeping that machine running, maintaining it, and then the time that they're devoting to your actual print. That's the resource they use most of, is time. And the time that his printer is running printing something for you is time it's not printing something else. And that can be, you know, this is like a 12-hour print. So one of the reasons I don't sell individual prints so much is that I have one printer. And if I'm printing something for you over 12 hours, which I still do for some, on certain occasions, but if I'm printing something for you, I'm not prototyping something, or I don't have a print going for myself, and that, you know, there's a cost associated with that. And we do a little bit on top too. Kind of just all over. You really don't need to be careful with this. You've already got a lot of variation in tone from the white you sprayed on earlier. This is just to pick up the texture. I'm going to be doing a little bit more dry brushing on this, but the dry brushing, the second round of dry brushing, is going to be almost the last step that we do. How much pricier are the resin machines? Sentient Pickle, I picked up both of my machines on sale, and my Ender 3, the one that's running on the camera there, was about $180, and the Elegoo Mars was just under $300, maybe between $250 and $300. So resin printers are going to be maybe a third more expensive on average, but it also has a much, much smaller print size. All resin printers are generally going to have a smaller print size than their FDM brethren. It's just the nature of the beast. And if you smear a bunch of white around while you're doing this, honestly, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. If it's the one thing that I can encourage people to do in these streams, when you mess something up, just, you know, as Douglas Adams would say, don't panic. Penis Land warrior reporting for duty in Penis Land where he is a warrior, right? That makes sense. I would assume, since you're reporting for duty and you're a member of an official military, that it is in fact Penis Land that you are a warrior of. But please correct me if I'm mistaken. Nobody make a clip of that. Seriously, don't just... I'll delete it if you do. I have looked somewhat at vacuforming. I did a little bit of vacuforming back in 2014 when I was working on my Judge Dredd costume. I didn't do much, mind you, but I did a little bit of it. My facilities were pretty limited at the time. Vacuforming is not hard, but it does require you either purchase or build a fairly large rig to vacuform on, and they are obscenely priced. If you're going to buy the ones that are pre-made, they're obscenely expensive. At least they were. Maybe that's changed. I don't know. Building one is certainly within the realm of possibility for most people. They're not complicated, but they take up space and they require a bit of elbow grease that at the time I didn't have to spare. ISP customer service can suck it. Oh, thank you, Kat. That costume did come out pretty excellent. I got to meet Karl Urban in that costume. And Karl Urban is a fucking class act, you guys. I don't know if you're fans of Karl Urban out there. I don't know if you're fans of Dredd or, him as Éomer in The Lord of the Rings, or that show he did for a little while that got canceled because Fox are a bunch of pricks. The one with the androids called Almost Human, Being Human. Something like that. Whatever the one is that's about werewolves, it has the other name, and it's about robots. Karl Urban is a stand-up dude. He is a class act. He manages himself when he's doing Q&As, which is just phenomenal. He's really, really good at it. I've seen a lot of celebrities do Q&As where they need a handler, and they don't really manage it very well, even with one. But Karl, he just goes out onto stage and starts answering questions and interfacing with the audience in a way that a lot of celebrities can't seem to handle. I don't blame them. They usually have a lot to do when they're going to those conventions, but Karl really stood out. Karl can handle that sentient pickle. Karl Urban is fucking... Thank you for remembering that. The Boys. Oh my god. The Boys is such a cool show. If you watch that show... I watched that show expecting to be enthralled by Karl Urban, and I was. For God's sake, there's a scene where he takes a baby, a little baby, and he holds it, and it shoots lasers out of its eyes. And he uses it as a weapon to swing around and kill a bunch of mooks and goons. It's the best goddamn thing. But what's his name? Anthony Starr? The guy who plays Homelander? That dude stole the show. Pawnburn, I'm meaning to. That's on my list. At the time when I would have been reading that, I was like neck deep in a reread of Watchmen, so you'll have to forgive me. Fucking diabolical. That's my terrible accent for the day for one word. That's all you get. I'm not going to say I've met a lot of celebrities. I've met a handful of celebrities that I really, really wanted to. Enough to sort of get a feel for the different attitudes you can encounter, and Karl's is amazing. Karl will make you feel like you are the only person in the room. He will really give you some of his time, and he will pay attention to what you're saying. So if you ever have a chance to meet Karl Urban, do it. That's pretty good, I feel like. So let's get a look at the shading overall now. You can kind of see what I was going for, where it's very bright towards the bottom, and then it's darker towards the top before it gets to the sort of rocky chunk. Yeah, now I'm going to put a little bit more here now that I'm looking at it. And this is all just using real simple, real easy techniques, and using the texture that's already there. It looks a little splotchy in some areas, but you're really not going to notice it. And then the tops where the texture's been brought out by the white. I'm going to let this sit for a minute, and the next step that I get to on this is going to be coating the whole thing in Army Painter Quick Shade Mid Brown. You can pick any color you want. Mid Brown is just what I've been using. No, this is a different JT. I know the JT you're thinking of, Penis Land, but this is a different JT. That JT has not graced my stream, and I'll admit sometimes I think about that and I cry and I cry and I cry. But we can't live our lives that way, so. Dave, you won't even fucking notice the print lines after a while. Like, I'm telling you right now, the print lines are more of a problem in your head right now than they will ever be in real life. There are simple techniques that you can use to make them all but disappear. And particularly, as, like, if you consider the amount of effort that you would put into hand crafting the kinds of big pieces of terrain you can make with a 3D printer and compare it to the effort of sticking a card in, pushing a button, and leaving for 13 hours, and then you combine that with how easy it is to use filler primer to conceal the vast majority of the print lines, like, yeah, it's not a big deal. And if you really don't like the print lines, there are methods you can use in the print setup process that can reduce them. You can use layers that are like 0.12 or 0.06 millimeters. It'll take longer to print, but it'll look better. And, like Vergotterung there is saying, if you're printing tiny, tiny things that need super precise details, then you go for a resin printer. Here's a good example. Here's a little itty-bitty locust. He's teeny tiny. He's just a little guy, and he's got machine gun barrels and antennas and everything, and this was done on the resin printer. And it's fairly stable. Now, I don't want to flex these barrels too much because they will break off, but they've got a little bit of flex to them. Looks pretty good, right? Consider the amount of miniatures I've been able to make. This guy just came off my resin printer. Never in focus. Whatever. I'll paint him on stream later. You'll get a good look for him. Do plaster molds for Herstarts and do dungeon tiles and terrain. 3D looks... I've done some of the plaster molds from Herstarts. I love Herstarts plaster molds. I've made some incredible things with them. 3D printing is better, in my opinion. Not for everything. Obviously, it's going to depend on what you have access to. And 3D printing is like a whole hobby unto itself that you don't have to pick up for something as simple as plaster casting. But if you've got a printer and you know how to use it, it will completely replace Herstarts. It makes things that look at least that good, if not better. And once you learn how to print things, how to orient them... for instance, I keep talking about the highways that I'm making for Trinity City, and I keep getting delayed on them, but I'm telling you, the reason I'm getting delayed is because I've been cutting them apart into... No, Chaotic Harmony, that's not up yet. Chaotic Harmony. Coming in and checking my commands to see if I've put... The voiceovers I've got from you will be up and running on Tuesday, which I'll take this opportunity now, since I've got a number of my regular viewers in the stream, to note that I will not be streaming this Sunday. This Sunday I will be at Genghis Khan in Denver, and I will be playing with these models that I'm painting now. But that gives me a few days, Chaotic, to dig into my bot and my commands and actually set that up. Chaotic Harmony wants to hear that, that's just base coat, man. That's base coat. We'll get you there. Your voice is going to be all over my damn stream. We're just getting started, man. Boo? What? 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 Boo me? How dare you, sir? How dare you? So, I kind of want to dry brush this, and I'm not totally sure how it's going to look now that I've put down those coats, but I'm going to try it. I'm going to try it on a small spot, and if I don't like how it looks, I'm going to stop doing it. But I'd like to highlight the green just a little bit, you know? Just a little bit. Where the hell is my army green paint? There it is. There it is, there it is. I'm going to be mixing up a highlight for this olive drab that is going to be a combination of Army Painter Army Green and Vallejo Game Color Ghost Gray, which is really just a cold white. Now I need to find some sci-fi watercraft. I want to play some more underwater games of BattleTech. I played one game that was meant to be underwater, and we went through the process of converting the SRM and LRM launchers into torpedo launchers, and making a couple of submarines that could go on multiple levels and stuff. It was really cool. There aren't many underwater games. Of course, the big drawback being, like, the second you get a hull breach, your mech is just done. you're just screwed at that point. Oh, sorry, punching my microphone. I'm sure that sounded wonderful. I need a better airbrush setup for streaming, but this... I'm making do at the moment. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to move this and bring it back up in a minute. Just so I'm not tripping over myself. So much shit on my desk! That's better. Since I'm using a brush on them now, that should be just fine. Yeah, we used dice to show the different elevations at the time. If I was doing it again, I would probably invest a little bit more into having some good markers to use. Just gonna be lazy and print Jade Falcon mixed with green resin, you know. That's not a bad idea. That's not a bad idea at all. I encourage you to be lazy. I encourage everyone to be lazy. We're playing games, guys. If you want to make a work of art, make a work of art. And, you'll see me do some minis like that on here pretty soon. I have a Forge World Sanguinius that I intend to really dive deep on here pretty soon. And that one's probably going to eat... I'm just bumping everything today. That one's probably going to eat a really quite a lot of time. But I'm not going to expend that kind of effort on this. I'm going to go to more of a flat brush for this. Green resin stinks. I haven't used green resin. Does it really? Does it stink worse than the other types of resin? How you doing, Flavolicious? Good to see you, man. Try it on this strut and see how it looks. It's not bad, really. It's a little streaky, but it's really not bad. It helps the details pop out pretty nicely. I mean, considering all this is some airbrushing and some dry brushing, like, I'm pretty happy with that as far as details go, considering I've expended essentially zero effort. Work smarter, not harder, huh? Oh, God, why am I still using that phrase at this point in my life? And I'm really just trying to catch the hard edges between the dark spots and not leave a whole lot of color behind. Oh, thank you very much. Try to grab any MW5 files while I got Tiny Robots in a Box. If you could go ahead and grab, what are the files? There are those buildings on that one map. Oh yes, every single building from the game. If you could grab those for me, that'd be just spectacular. I've spent more time in MechWarrior 5 staring at the buildings and taking screenshots than I have playing the game. Infinitely more time. Losing missions because I'm like, yeah, I know you're shooting me. I'm looking at this building over here. Why don't you fuck off? I'm stealing ideas, damn it. There we go. Just keep going around the world here. Oh, I want a little bit in here. A little bit in here. A little bit up there. A little bit in these dark spots here. A little bit on this upper lip. Part of the reason I'm doing this one so simple too is part of doing a big project like this is sort of learning where all the lines are and how the model is divided up. And I want to do a much, much larger dropship than this, and like I said, that'll be on my project plate in the near future, but just sitting here slapping down color has already given me some ideas for ways that I would do it differently if I were spending more time on it. So I'll file those away, and we'll revisit this. On a slightly larger scale, and by slightly I mean significantly, because the next one I make is going to be huge! Now we've come all the way around, right? Yes, we have. Excellent. Now I'm going to do some more on the top panels, and hopefully that'll go just as smoothly. Yeah, not bad. I didn't mix up enough of my highlight. I thought I mixed up too much, but I was... Oh, God, what have I done? That's a bit sloppy even for me. Now, part of the thing that I find helps when you are dry brushing a 3D print that has layer lines is, yeah, do it diagonally or horizontally. And you are less likely to grab the vertical print lines. You'll still get some of them. You'll still wind up dry brushing them, but it really just doesn't look as bad as I think people imagine it will. I understand. I was there too when I was first getting started. I was like, never! No one will see my print lines. It's super important. It just isn't. It really just isn't. Oh, excuse me. Oh, thank you, Guy. That's very kind of you to say. We can get the Mars resin printer, and one of the other items it shows people is buying is a pickle container. A pickle container. Yeah, listen to Flavolicious, because I don't know. He seems to know, but I don't know. I mean, he says he knows. You take what Flavolicious says with a grain of salt. Yeah, I need to mix up some more. Big old pot of it, because I gotta do a bunch more of this. There we go, that should be enough. And it's paler than what I was using. Sure that won't bite me in the ass. Weird-ass Chinese thing. What am I missing? Oh. Even Cat knows what the hell it is. Dave, the printer will make a case for itself within 6 months. At least mine did. The FDM printer is good for so much more than model making and terrain. I have used it for I don't know how many just around-the-house projects. I've used it for my streaming equipment. Most of the things that you see me using, including the arm that my camera is on, they're all 3D printed. The arm that my printer camera is on was 3D printed. I've got hooks on my wall that were 3D printed. I've got cable ties that were 3D printed. Like, you find yourself thinking like, oh, I need a hook, or I need this, or I need that needs to fit this thing perfectly. Your printer will spit it out. Once you learn how to do a little bit of simple modeling, it takes almost no effort. That's a bit much. This is probably, like, of all the models that you are most likely to see print lines on, this big semi-spheroid shape is just, you're gonna see them. Like, this is the worst shape for print lines from an FDM printer. And be that as it may, it still doesn't look half bad, I don't think. Yeah, you can kind of see the shape of the printing coming out in it, but it's not terrible. If you wanted to do what I'm doing more carefully, with more time, with an airbrush, you wouldn't even see that. Tiny robots in a box, it doesn't take much, man. It really doesn't take much. Learning modeling now is easier than it ever has been. There's so many online tutorials, so many easy programs. You could just get started in CAD. CAD is simple. Something like Fusion 360 or... I mean... Blender is a bit obtuse, but it's an incredibly powerful piece of software. It's something I've been meaning to get better at. Alright, so I'm going to do some dry brushing on the blue here in a minute, but here we just have... And this has been nothing, if you've been watching, this has been nothing but airbrushing and dry brushing. And we'll do a little bit more. I'm just trying to keep this thing as simple as possible, and so far I think I'm succeeding. Yeah, Blender is... If you're looking to make something that needs to be really precise, geometrically precise, Tinkercad is good for that. You can do it in Blender. The Blender can do almost anything, but it's not immediately obvious how. If you're looking to do things really, really precise and gridded, try Fusion 360. It makes it really, really easy to line all of your distances and measurements up and model things based on the shapes of others. There's a phrase for that. I can't think of it right now. Yeah, Blender's just hard. Blender is an obtuse and difficult program that can do anything. It's on my list of things I really should learn if I want to take myself seriously as a designer. But who wants to take themselves too seriously? I mean, what the fuck fun is that? What are we even doing if we're taking ourselves seriously? Alright. Now, I want to do some dry brushing on what are meant to be the metallic parts of this. And for that, I'm going to use more of my Ghost Gray. And I'm going to mix in a tiny bit of my base coal black mixture that I made in the first place. Stir that up and see what we wind up with. I think I could add a little bit more. That barely seemed to affect it. Bloop, bloop, bloop. A couple more drops. That is better. That's much better. More of a blue-gray, less of a white. The redesigns are pretty intense, I'm not gonna lie. Let that dry brush dry, as it were. And I'll use this one for a bit. After I do this, I'm going to do a bit more airbrushing on that hill. That should be the last of the airbrushing I need to do. Should be. We'll find out. When is anything ever really done, though, you know? I propose never. So I'm going to start by coming in on these landing struts, and I don't want to put this everywhere. I just want to hit the top edges. Pick out the toes, the pistons. Oh, that's a bit much. That's a bit heavy. Oh well, it doesn't matter. It don't matter. I'm really just trying to catch the hard edges here. Just to give all these details a little bit of depth. Not even much, not even a lot of depth, you know? Just enough. 3 to 5 feet. Always remember, 3 to 5 feet. That's your average viewing distance. And that's what you should be shooting for looking decent. Well, not that you should be shooting. You should be shooting for any level of quality that you want to achieve. But you shouldn't feel like you have to. I only say that because at previous times in my painting career, if you can call it that, I have found myself disappointed in very good paint jobs that I've done because I feel like I didn't push myself hard enough. I didn't really do as good as I could have. And that sort of attitude can be helpful for pushing you to achieve new things, certainly. And if you find it helpful, then stick with it. But if you don't enjoy it, if that's making you feel bad about your paint jobs, if that's preventing you, if that's giving you like anxiety and preventing you from actually painting, throw that shit out the window, man. Toss it in the fucking trash, because who needs it? Paint your spacemans exactly the way you want to. Yeah, that looks decent. Had to learn that about highlights. Always did subtle ones, look great at point-blank range. Okay, that is seriously something that screwed me up for a long time. Yes, you as a painter, you're going to be doing this with your model. You're going to be leaning in and staring at it. And there might be some transitions and colors and highlights that look good when your face is right here, but it won't at 3 to 5 feet. You'll just lose it completely. The things that look good at 3 to 5 feet might look ridiculous up close. You gotta make progress in the skill by practicing. If you expect amazing results with no work, it's not being realistic. Carl, you are absolutely correct. You are absolutely correct, which is why I say that you need to be clear about your goals when you start painting. If this is a piece where you're gonna push yourself, where you're gonna try a technique that you haven't tried before, know that going in. Understand that before you start painting the model. But don't be driven to that by the feeling that you should. No, unless you want to be, unless you really are trying to push yourself. But the core of it being, know your expectations, know your end point. Because if you don't have an end point, if you don't have a point in mind where you're going to be like, yeah, this is good enough, this is what I was shooting for, you can be stuck on the same model for weeks. I've had it happen to me. And you know, for some people it might not be a problem at all, and if that's the case, then ignore everything I'm saying. But if you know what I'm talking about, if you found yourself stuck on a model, go easy on yourself, you know? Generally, by the time I'm ready to learn a new technique, I know, because I'm bored with what I've been doing. I'll be working on a figure and I'll be doing the same old shit that I've been doing for a while, and I'll go, you know, this is lame. I know I can do better than this. Maybe now's the time. Maybe now's the time for me to try something. That's precisely the right time. Not when anyone else tells you to. See, there you go, tiny robots. That jet just came right off. Also, if you are practicing new techniques, practice them on models you don't care about. I was just dry brushing right there, and the nozzle that was here just went boop and came right off. They're just not very well attached to the overall body is all. Need some structural reinforcements. And like I said, you're going to see some models coming up here on the stream before too long. I need to paint a Sanguinius for a friend of mine. And that's a model where you're going to see me saying, okay, I need to learn some new shit. Let's sit down and let's really spend some time on the details. That model is going to take me a while, and I'm probably going to wind up doing some streams significantly longer than 4 hours while I'm painting Sanguinius. And man, I would love it if some of you guys felt like coming out and joining me for that, because I'm going to need some company, because that model's going to make me cry. Tears of frustration and tears of joy, both. It's a beautiful figure. But as far as setting goals, I think, like I said earlier, this figure, this dropship I'm painting now, this is because we need something on the table for a game at a convention, and I intend to give it away at the end, so that it gets the amount of attention and effort that I'm willing to put into that. Not that I don't put effort into giveaway items. I've painted some items for giveaway that have been very nice. The guys who ran the Warlord tournament at the last CavCon were gracious enough to ask me to paint one of their trophy calves for that, and I think that one came out really well. But then I spent a lot more time on each individual detail of that one, let me tell you. I don't want to dry brush too much on the top. I more just want to kind of stipple this color around because the print lines on the top are some of the worst when you have a rounded shape like this. And it'll end up looking stepped and tiered, so I'm just kind of, ooh, maybe not quite that wet. Maybe not quite that much. But I more just want to smear it. So there's, you know, our essential colors. What do you think? Think that's pretty good for doing really nothing but airbrushing and dry brushing roughly? Oh, there's a spot I missed. Ew, Cyclops. Gross. Carl, you make a good point there too, and that's something that I say periodically. With a 3D printer, you have essentially an infinite number of... I used to test my paint techniques on throwaway models, and now I test them on 3D prints. And since I've gotten a 3D printer, I've been much more experimental with my painting too, because, like I said, you can try something new, and if it doesn't work, toss that shit in the trash, and print another one, and do it again. It'll cost you pennies, ultimately. Dollars if it's a big print. And we're not talking a lot of dollars, we're talking like $2 maybe. Generally speaking, you can obviously spend more money on a print. Alright, after this I'm going to set this guy aside for a little bit and work some more on the hill. But I'm just going to give him one quick rotation so you can get a feel for the colors that we've put down with just stupid easy techniques. Just bonehead techniques. Just base coat, if you will. JT, you're absolutely correct. That would be fantastic if we were able to do that. And once you get it to this point too, here's the thing, is I could spend a few hours now going in and hand detailing a lot of these panels. And I might do that later tonight, I don't know. Depends on how I feel. But I mean, boom. There's an okay looking tabletop dropship in only about 2.5 hours of paint time. And that's if you spend that 2.5 hours of paint time talking to you people, as well as painting, which will slow you down somewhat. Alright, I'm going to take a moment and reconfigure a bit so I can use my airbrush again. Ooh, I should clean my airbrush before I do that. Art! What's up, Necro Bob? Good to see you, man. How you been? I'm not a big fan of the Cyclops myself, Berg, I gotta say. Speaking of Cyclops, yesterday I'm playing Battletech, right? Battle on an urban map. And a bunch of skulls. Big, mean mission, and I find out as I get in, it's not because I'm going to be facing 12 mechs like you are in some of the difficult missions, but because I'm facing one lance of mechs, just 4, but they're all heavies and assault class. Big, mean sons of bitches. And the only assault class I had at the time was the Highlander that you get as part of the campaign mission. And then I had an Orion that I had fitted with an AC-20 on its side torso. And the first mech I see, I run into the city, and boom, there's a Cyclops standing there staring at me. I'm like, oh, I ran forward just trying to scout. I didn't really mean to get line of sight. I wasn't paying attention to the line of sight markers. And, I just tried to... the auto mod just censored Pretzel Rocks because the name of the song is Does He Look Like a Bitch? Anyway, so there's a Cyclops. I run in with the Orion. I've got just enough for one called shot. I target him. I go ahead and click, yeah, do the AC-20. AC-20 has like a 40% chance to hit at this range. I've only got 10 shots, but, you know, it's one of those where if you hit big. So I say, go ahead, do an aim shot, target his head, there's like a 10% chance, whatever, it's not going to happen, but first shot of the game, plunk, headshot, blows the head off the Cyclops. So what I'm really trying to say here is, fuck your Cyclops, Flav. Thank you, Cat, I appreciate that. Alright. So. Here we have our Hex Hill that we have been working on since the very beginning of the stream. Hang on, let me get something from... Okay. You should be sad, Flav. You should be. You deserve... No, I don't want to make you sad. What am I saying? It's really not my fault, or anyone else's fault, though, that you like the Cyclops, and the Cyclops is objectively bad. Alright, so I'm going to be... just to go over what we've done on this so far. Applied texture at the beginning. Applied a black paint over the top of absolutely everything else, came back in with some white and applied that in a zenithal fashion, and then dry brushed white. And now we've let all that set. And now I'm going to come back. I am objectively bad, thank you for noting it. I'm going to be airbrushing down some Army Painter Quick Shade Wash, which I really like putting through the airbrush. Some people don't, but I do. And if you like doing it, that is the only damn thing that matters. I should put on my mask before we go any further. One moment. First full start-to-finish paint jobs was the Cyclops. Well, you know, you gotta work with what you got, man. There's nothing good or bad, but thinking makes it so. Well, you may have a point. You may have a point. Maybe I'm just salty from some bad experiences with Cyclopses. I don't know. Possible. You'll certainly never know, because I'll never admit it. Oh, you can quote the devil all you want to in here, man. Guy makes some real good points. Alright, so just doing essentially exactly what I was doing earlier with the dropship, but with a different color. You don't have to go as thick on this, because I brought it up to a nice white, and you really want some variation in the shadows. But I mean, you can already see that color coming through. It's real subtle. That's why you want to do a few passes. And we're almost on the last step. Almost. For these hills. At least for the color scheme I've chosen for them. Which you could use any color you want on this. You could use the same technique and come back in with a black wash and just go for more of a dark gray standard stone. This is kind of a rosy granite or sandstone look that I'm going for. This would be more rosy granite if you left it as it is. I'm going to come in with some Hexos Pale Sun Dry Brush compound, and that's going to make it look a lot more sandstony. At least, you know, that's the goal. Whether it does or not, I'll leave that up to you. You be the judge. I'd just like to mention again, for anyone who might not have caught it earlier, if you have been catching me regularly, there will be no stream this Sunday, because I will be at Genghis Khan in Denver with these very pieces that I'm painting today, playing a game of Eridani Light Horse against Smoke Jaguars, and then I will be back Tuesday, hopefully with some overhauls to the channel, courtesy of Chaotic Harmony, who is a gentleman and a scholar, or at least a beard-sporting mech warrior, which is really just as good. Genghis Khan is a gaming convention in Denver, Colorado. For those of you who didn't know where to go to stalk me, now you do. And obviously, you want to stalk me. I mean, who wouldn't? Vergadalung, I tend to agree. The King Crab model they did for MWO was a big fucking deal. Cat, I don't know. You're even in the area. You should know these things. Here from the bottom, you can see the color of PLA that I printed this in. If you use aerosols, yeah. All I do is I atomize acrylics. I don't put anything through this that requires a biological filter or a significant chemical filter. The worst that I get off my airbrush is particulate, and this filter is more than high rated enough for what I'm doing. If you want to overdo it, I'm not going to tell you that you can't. You can absolutely go and buy some super expensive biological and chemical filter mask to wear when you're airbrushing. But I do not believe it is necessary from my research or from my experience. Maybe I'll die hacking and coughing and you'll be laughing your way, you know, be chuckling to yourself at my funeral. Maybe that will be the case. But that's a risk I'm willing to take. It's starting to look pretty good. I'm going to put it back on my turntable here because that really helps me get a good view. And part of the reason I like this technique is you can just be real sloppy with the color when you're laying it down. You want to put it everywhere, and then you kind of vary it as you go. But you're never going to put down so much color at one time that you're like, oh shit, I messed it up. It's just not going to happen. Particularly with the way these hills are textured, look at them from all angles, because you're going to wind up missing some, Oh, Cat. Cat, you're a wonderful person. I had a drink of water just a few minutes ago. I haven't stretched, but I'm not intending to carry this stream on that much longer, so I think that's okay. I do have some other work I need to get to tonight, otherwise I would stick with you fine people for significantly longer. My streams average about 4 hours. That's been kind of what I'm shooting for most times when I come on. I'm planning on having some longer ones. But Cat knows I need to get a better chair, because even after 4 hours I start to feel it. That looks pretty good to me. Oh, missed a spot. As soon as I turned it up into the camera, I could see the spot that I missed, too. But you can kind of see how the color's coming together. Yeah, that spot, for whatever reason, is not holding it all that well. Maybe a little bit over here, too. Yeah? That looks okay. Make sure I get some from the top. Alright. That's all I'm going to do for that. There's one step left on... Okay, there's 2 steps left on the hills to get them to the point of the ones that I painted for a demo. There is a dry brush after this of... I've been using Hexos Pale Sun from Citadel. That's one of the only Citadel products that I buy regularly are their dry brush compounds. You don't need to use their dry brush compounds. I believe that the dry brush compounds are still overpriced, but I feel like the price is mostly worth it for the benefit that I get out of them. But, you know, you can use any pale yellow, ultimately, or any other color you want. But I find that the yellow plus the brown red, you get kind of a nice sandstony color out of this, which matches the map sheets that CGL released pretty well. What am I doing next? I'm going to let this sit for a minute, and while I do that, I'm going to apply some blue to the PPC shot that is coming off of Firehose, which I added. I'm still not totally sure if I love it, but it seemed cool, and I've got nothing really to lose, so... A lot of airbrushing and dry brushing today. I'm going to have to give you guys some proper brush work on Tuesday. What do you say? Yes, the pink is still there, Necrobob. Yes, yes, yes it is. The pink hasn't gone anywhere. I don't go back on my word, at least if there's a chance I'll be held accountable. I'm going to be applying some Vallejo Air Electric Blue. Pretty thin over this. Not too thin, though, because I'm going to hand detail it. And apply a little bit of matte medium to thin that out. It's already pretty thin, but I'd like to have maximum control. Why the hell am I using this instead of my wet palette? Can anyone answer that question for me? I can't. Because I just remembered that I have a wet palette. That might be why. Pink is a perfectly fine color. There's nothing wrong with pink. It's more of a magenta anyway. So I have a link for the weapon effect. I will put one up in the Discord after this. Pawnburn, thank you so much for coming out, man. It's been a pleasure having you here every time that I'm streamed. Remember, I'm not doing one on Sunday, but I'd love to see you back here on Tuesday, man. Thank you for coming out. Alright, onto a slightly finer brush. This is just some base coloring, so I'm not doing anything too fancy or too careful here. come back in and add some texture and detail by hand afterwards. I raised my camera today because I was going to be doing a bunch of airbrushing, so it's not the most in focus for hand painting. I'll fix it in just a minute. There's also a temptation here to do some OSL on the body of Fire Hose, and I think I probably will do that. I don't think I'll do it today, but that will come in a later stream as I continue to work on Rampart Company. That's a good color of blue, I think. In fact, I'll leave it where it is because I'm going to dry brush those hills. Hope to see you then, Pondburn. Much appreciated for you coming out today, man. Might as well, since I've got this color, slop some into the tips of the other PPCs. That's a good start, color-wise. I can work up from there. Alright, I should be able to get away with some dry brushing on the hill now. Oh, that print is just about to finish over there. Look at that thing go. You can actually see it now. I'll make that, like I said, I'll make that camera bigger next time. It's maybe a little bit small. But then I think you guys see it a little bit bigger than I do anyhow. Right about there. I think I want to go a little deeper with this black on him. I know this is where I landed last time, but I think I'm probably going to put another black wash over the dark spots and come back in for a fresh round of highlights. You'll probably see Fire Hose again on Tuesday, along with Gigantes. And then that will be 2 Lances of Rampart Company completely done, which will be pretty neat. Hill. Boom. I'm going to use Citadel's Dry Brush Compound Hexos Pale Sun to finish highlighting and detailing this desert hill. I don't want to use that one. I need to clean that brush. I will use this guy. He seems promising. I like a nice flat brush for dry brushing. Now you don't want to go too heavy with this final dry brush because nothing's going to go over this one to soothe it out. So just take it a little bit at a time. And just going for a similar look here, coming from an upward direction, focusing on the bottoms where you really need the color differentiation, and then near the tops, but pointedly avoiding these areas where you want there to be deep shadows anyway. But like the edges of the tops are a good place to hit. And coming at these from a sideways direction rather than down helps you to get the texture of the sculpting rather than the texture of the printing. You're going to get the texture of the print somewhat, but you know, with every project, you're going to have to weigh how much you care about that. The more you paint 3D prints, the more you'll learn what you can get away with and what you can't. What looks good, what doesn't, how much finishing time you want to spend. If you're doing mechs, you're going to spend a lot more finishing time than I did on this. Not like a lot more, necessarily, but certainly some. Paint pots. Yeah, I know. I know. It makes me sick. I hate the paint pots. This is maybe the only context in which I think the pot is perfectly fine is for the dry brush compounds. And really it is. For the dry brush compounds, I do not mind the pot. For everything else, I mind the pot. They put airbrush paints in pots, man. How the hell does that make sense? Did I just time out for a minute there? It looked like I did. Again, I'm focusing most of this towards the bottom. A little bit in the middle, and then again on the top. And then you can see the texture really starting to come out on the areas that have been dry brushed. Yeah? I looked away, it was plastic, and then I looked back and suddenly it was made of rocks. Thus is the magic. The magic of miniature painting. Selling the most bizarre illusions you can possibly imagine. So just a heads up to my current round of viewers. I'm not going to be going much longer today. I've got a few tasks to get to before tonight, and I'm still preparing for Genghis Khan this weekend, so I'm going to be ducking out here in a little bit. But I wanted to thank each and every one of you for coming in here to watch me paint today. I hope that anything you've seen has been educational or entertaining, or I mean, at least not completely boring. That would be terrible. And if you're curious about anything that I've done on the stream today, I'm always sure to use non-copyrighted music material, so nothing I do gets auto-muted by Twitch. So if you'd like to come back and look at any of the techniques that I'm using, they should be available to you in VOD. And if you stuck around with me for the entire stream, I appreciate you just a little bit more than I appreciate everybody else. Because you're special. I'm welcome. I'm welcome for your presence. Thank you very much, Camo Specs. It means a lot to me, man. Camo Specs Online, man, you do some fantastic tutorials. And that's really where I started when I got back into painting Battle Max. I was like, let me go to Camo Specs and see what the hell it is I'm trying to do. That's where I decided to start in with the first Free Worlds Guard and ripped a couple of my concepts from. Oh, you can't? Well, you know, I'm trying to provide some content for the Battletech fans out there. I noticed when it was suggested to me that I start streaming that there just wasn't a lot of Battletech tabletop content. But hopefully we can change that, you know? Get the game out there. Get the game in people's faces. That's the best way to get people to sign on to a difficult and expensive hobby, right? Is to shove it in their faces and berate them for not being a part of it already. I'm pretty sure I read that in a book someplace. Maybe that was Tony Robbins who said that. Alright, now I'm going to come up on top. And when I'm dry brushing on top, I try to focus the Hexos Pale Sun out towards the edges, and not so much towards the middle. Just towards the edges, and leave what you got towards the middle of the hexes. We really are. Battletech in general is underrepresented on Twitch. These days, less so with the Battletech, PC and video games. That's certainly popping up plenty, but the hope is that those will drive more interest in the original tabletop game, which I maintain, as much as I enjoy HBS Battletech, there is no replacement for the intricacy and enjoyment of classic Battletech gameplay. I think that Battletech gets a bad rap. I think that a lot of people look at it and they see how many charts are involved and they go, oh, that's a math game, I don't want to play that. But it's really not as bad as it looks. I think that it's important to draw a distinction, particularly in tabletop games, between complexity and complication. There are many games out there that are complicated, but not necessarily complex, if that makes sense. I think 40K is actually a good example of it. 40K is... Now, this is less true as of the new edition, but for many, many years, and still to some degree in the current edition, it is slow. Tiny Robots in a Box, it is slow at first, until players learn what they're doing. And it's certainly not for everybody, but tabletop gaming isn't for everybody, so is that really a surprise? I would say that Warhammer 40K, not to disparage Warhammer 40K, it is an excellent game, obviously. I paint plenty of models from Warhammer 40K, don't get me wrong. But it has complications in it that don't really add to the gameplay. There are segments of the game where you can spend a lot of time hemming and hawing about what you're going to do, only to make a choice that really didn't impact the game at all. And I hate that. Almost every choice you consider in Battletech is going to impact the game pretty severely. Or at least it can, it won't necessarily. And I feel like the complexity of Battletech lends itself to some of the most fun tabletop experiences I've had, when it's not so much, and you get this in Alpha Strike too, where it's not so much, well, my weapon does 3 points of damage, and you have 3 bubbles of health, and I hit you, so you die. I'm less interested in that than I am in, well, I kicked you, and I'm this many tons, so I do this much damage, and I rolled, and oh, I hit you in the head. Oh, okay, so I stomped your goddamn brains in is what I did. It's a much more descriptive sort of event. I'd much rather lose a Shadowhawk to a shot to the rear armor that detonates its ammo stores than lose a Shadowhawk to I filled in all the bubbles. Oh, that sounds terrible, Tiny Robot. Okay. Well, there is no game on the planet Earth that is going to play well if you are... Vergata Rung, you shut your mouth, sir. I will stand here and I will support you while you berate Flavolicious and his favorite mechs. But you will not besmirch the Shadowhawk, sir. Not in my presence. The Dougram will not forgive you. I'll stand for a lot. I'll stand for personal insults. You can insult me. You can insult my family. You can insult my dog. Don't insult my dog. She's very sweet. You can insult my face. But you leave the Shadowhawk out of it. Not the Poochin. No, not the Poochin. You leave the Poochin alone. So, the only thing that I would do to this hill at this point, obviously I would seal it with a matte sealant of your choice. But the only thing that I would do to this now is I usually add some flocking. On these hills I have used... Vergaderung. This isn't okay. This isn't okay. It is not. It is not confused. I lack the words for the screaming hate missile that exists inside of me right now that wants to come blasting out of my chest like an alien through the screen and find you in your home. That's what you do to me when you talk shit about the Shadowhawk. I just want you to know what I'm going through. But I use Woodland Scenic's Fine Turf, Burnt Grass, on these hills. If you've seen the full set that I've completed, this is the turf that I use for it. And I'm not going to do it right now because I don't have my glue ready to go. But all I do is I water down some basic PVA white glue, real simple stuff, and then the grass really looks the best, pardon, hitting my microphone, if you put it basically in all of these crevices where you go from a horizontal to a vertical surface. And also, I mean, logically speaking, more moisture and water would gather in these shady areas, and that's where you'd probably have... I mean, I'm talking about where grass would grow on a rock formation that is based on hexes and looks fucking absurd, but, you know. If you put the grass mostly along these edges between hexes, and then just like a couple teeny tiny splops when you're in the big broad areas, so it still looks like a desert, I find that that works perfectly on these. And again, the one that I used, if you look at the demo ones that I've completed and you're looking to do the same thing, is Woodland Scenics Fine Turf Burnt Grass. This container, I'm going to put this probably on my Amazon Blacksmith link. I can't tell you offhand how much it costs. It wasn't bad though, it's less than $20 for this whole thing. And this will last you for the rest of your life. Buy one and never ever worry about it again. Oh, I'm knocking stuff over. Brilliant. So there's our desert hill. With some decent color variation, considering, again, all we've done on this is airbrushing and dry brushing. That's really it. 2mm static grass can work too. I always find that static grass is a little bit more effort than I'm usually willing to put in, but there's nothing wrong with it. If you like using static grass, by all means use static grass. And I am not going to work on this guy right now. I'm not going to work on that because I have to finish some other work to be done in time for this weekend. Ooh, that print over there finished. I'm going to go grab that real quick and bring it over. Now, you shouldn't necessarily do what I just did. Really, if you're printing on an FDM printer, you should leave it sit for the plate to cool, and it will... Oh, tiny robots, yes, I'll go get that in just a second. Wait for it to cool, and it'll pop off the plate by itself, just automatically. But, and this was a mistake, I didn't realize I was doing this. This printed on a raft. And I might as well use this as an opportunity to show what a raft is for anybody who is getting into 3D printing, and you've seen... You know, I'll get that in just 1 second, tiny robots. I will put that on the stream for you. But this is one of the adhesion options you have available to you if you use Cura or a lot of other slicers. If you're having trouble with your part adhering to the print bed, it peels up a whole lot. What it'll do is it'll print this layer of plastic first, and then it'll print on top of this layer, because your flat plastic, your bottom layer, is going to adhere better to the plastic than it will to glass, for instance. And then when it's done, the raft just comes right off like that. This is waste plastic, but it's not a lot of it. And you wind up with a nice flat bottom. And these are little recesses that I have for washers because I like to weight my hills. But here is the Desert Hill style in its raw printed form, which with a little bit of effort, as we've seen today, can look like this. Now, pardon me for 1 moment. I'll be right back. I promised Tiny Robots in a Box I would show off that Whitworth of his that I painted. Ooh, no, it's interesting. I'll go get the painted one. But I did actually have a printed Whitworth of yours right here this entire time. One that I didn't use because I messed up the missile launchers in his chest. This was one of the first ones that I printed, and it didn't quite come out the way that I wanted it to. I'll go get the one that I painted, though, because you'll get a better look at him. I will be right back. Whew. And we are back. I figured since I was going out to grab a couple of mechs anyway to show them off, I would grab a couple more interesting ones, or at least ones that I think you might find interesting. Let me set this up so I've got slightly better focus here. Oh, I gotta clean up my painting area. It's a mess! Pull you up, and let's see. Starting off with Tiny Robots in a Box's Whitworth, because I know he wants to see the Comstar one I did. This was a quick and dirty paint job I did for a Tukayid campaign game, or not campaign, scenario game that we were doing. That's pretty good. Oh, that's out of focus. Come on. There, that's not bad. Here we have a MWO sort of kit-bashed Whitworth with LRMs on either side of the chest and medium lasers on the arms, and then he's all covered in red dirt. His back came out a little rough. This was one of my first prints. And I didn't even let him cure all the way properly. So he's a little funky, but even being a little funky, I think he came out pretty decent. I love the face on the Whitworth. Oh, makes him turgid. Turgid, he says. And I figured while I'm here, I might as well show you guys some of my FDM printed mechs so you can get a feel for what you can do with an Ender 3 without having to get a resin printer. First, I'm going to show you a couple of mechs, the first ones that I printed, that are all FDM printed, all printed on the Ender 3, starting with a Thunderbolt for the first Free Worlds Guard. This was printed on an Ender 3. This is an FDM PLA print. Now as I turn it to the back, you'll notice that it starts to look like shit. It starts to look a lot rougher. Many of these details I had to paint on myself. But that's because I printed it laying on its back like this, and as a result the top surface on the front is really, really good looking. So the back, yeah, the back's a little rough. But as you come back around to the front, it looks pretty nice, I think. This decal on his chest, by the way, is one that I printed myself. It's just never quite as nice as the other ones. Thank you, Carl. This Stalker is another FDM print that I did around the same time. This was also done on the Ender 3. His back is pretty rough. You can see his back really is rougher than the Thunderbolts. It just looks like a damn mess. But I think that if you spent some more time on the back, you could make it look pretty good. But these were among the very first models that I ever printed. Anybody can tune in. Anybody can tune an Ender 3 to get this kind of result. Here is an Orion. Note the antennas on the Orion are pins that I added later. They're not part of the print. Ender 5 is bigger, Sentient Pickle. I wouldn't say it's better. It's got a bigger print area. As you can see, again, his back looks pretty rough. His back looks a little noodly. But then as you come back around to the front, it looks pretty good. And now I'd like to give you one last figure that I'm going to show. The Griffin. This is an FDM print for the first Free Worlds Guard. This was done on the Ender 3. I modified the lasers myself with like green stuff, so ignore that. And these antennas were added after the fact. Peter! Again, his back is very rough. But as we come back around to the front, he looks pretty good. And now for direct comparison, this exact same model, printed a little while later on my Elegoo Mars. Again, these antennas were added. You can print antennas on the Elegoo Mars, but on this one I did not. But you can see the results on the front are not that different, honestly. But as you get to the back... Oh, he looks nice. Oh, he looks nice. The Mars it's a great investment and it's a fantastic machine, honestly. This is the kind of quality you can get out of the Mars. I do not regret switching to the Mars for my 3D prints, but at the same time, for my mech prints I mean, but at the same time I would just like to let anybody know who's considering getting into 3D printing, you can get really good results out of the Ender 3 if you are willing to put in the time and the effort to tune it and to learn kind of how the machine works. But you're going to have to do that with... Well, okay. It's worth noting that the Mars is easy. The Mars, I think it took me maybe 10 minutes to set it up, and by the time I set it up, I pushed a button and it was printing. It's kind of idiot-proof, so it's worth considering that, yeah, you can get this kind of quality and basically have no fucking clue what you're doing at all. And if you want the same quality on the Ender 3, you do have to know what you're doing. I'll tell you a difference, though, and this may concern you, this may not concern you. Between these two mechs, this one, I would throw this one across the room. I could take this one and hurl it full strength across the room, and it would bounce off whatever it hit, and I might chip the paint on whatever corner that struck. But overall, I'd be very confident that this miniature, the one on the Ender 3, would be perfectly fine. This one would shatter into a billion goddamn pieces if I did the same thing. You do not strictly need a lamp to cure your resin prints. My resin prints I cure by just leaving outside for a couple hours, honestly, maybe over the course of a day. Flavolicious here is saying a cheap $15 nail lamp off Amazon. That's perfectly acceptable. That will certainly cure your prints for you. Do be sure to cure your prints, though. Because if you don't cure your prints all the way, or if you cure them poorly, you could wind up with a problem like mine here, where his leg cracked open and unleashed a bunch of resin that was waiting inside uncured, because he wasn't really given enough time. And it ran down his leg, and now I've got a painted mech that is, well, he's seen better days. Yes. Yes. Cure them properly. I have made that mistake. But, I mean, this is actually a good example. Because this antenna, the Mars printed that. That was printed as part of the mech. I did not have to add that on. Hey, thanks for coming out, Tiny Robots. I really, really appreciate you coming out today and hanging out long enough to see some of your... I mean, really, thank you for all the work that you've done. I absolutely love working on your stuff. You're like one of my go-to guys on Thingiverse when I'm looking for something neat. Oh, alright. So I'm getting ready to wrap up. Anybody got any questions? Anything I haven't covered? Anything you'd like me to talk about for a few minutes? While I take a look and see if there's a raid worth sending you into. Anybody painting? It would be good to know. There's nobody painting right now. I mean, there are people painting, but nobody that I really want to... Leaf back. There's always somebody. There's always somebody who pops in, like, in the last few minutes when I'm like, well, this has been a fun couple hours, guys. Some say transparent prints quicker. I haven't found that to be true. I really haven't. Transparent resin is very, very cool. I've printed some very neat things in transparent resin. If you're... yeah, so I'll allow that. I did some hostile mech contacts a little... I say I, somebody else pulled them out. I don't remember whose files I was using, but... Here, I've got it right over here. This was done in transparent red. You can see there's a couple of air bubbles in it. And actually it needs to cure a little bit more. I can tell right there and there. He needs to sit in the window a little bit, but you can do this with red resin. And this is just for a generic mech contact, so you can play like double blind if you want to. Of course, sentient. Absolutely. Yeah, you can see through it and tell how well it printed the whole way through. I don't want to give too much advice on different types of resins, because if I'm being honest, I've only used maybe 2 or 3 different kinds. I've seen a lot of people are getting into some really cool stuff now. There's water washable resins, which sounds nice because handling pure acetone and pure isopropyl alcohol regularly is... It's a little bracing, you know? It's really caustic, and you gotta be careful with it. Also highly explosive. That is something to be very aware of. If you're going to be using a resin printer and you're going to be printing, or you're going to be cleaning your models off with like 99% isopropyl and pure acetone, that shit can become a bomb in no time. Store it in a dangerous chemicals locker. Keep it away from open flames. 99% isopropyl alcohol is so fucking flammable. I cannot emphasize that enough. I've heard horror stories of people putting it into the ultrasonic cleaners, and it just agitating it to the point that it atomizes some of the isopropyl, and at that point what you have is a bomb. Like one spark and kaboom! Your ultrasonic cleaner is going to explode like a grenade. Same thing for acetone, highly flammable. Yes, also keep acetone out of the sun. In general, if you're going to be handling chemicals that are as caustic as that, be aware of what you're handling, check all of the safety regulations, and don't fucking kill yourself. Because these models are not worth being permanently disfigured. Like, yeah, okay, it could be kind of cool to be like the Phantom of the Opera, but I guarantee you, you're not that handsome, you don't sing that well, chicks will not find you as attractive as they find him. It's just not going to happen. It's not The Mask, you guys. It's the creepy, rapey misogyny and the singing voice. I promise you. Yes. Yes, cat. Exactly. Remember, you are not Gerard Butler. No matter how much you want to believe that you are. Yeah, honestly, use gloves. Use the right kind of gloves, too. A lot of people fall back on the nitrile gloves. On the blue nitrile gloves. Acetone, for instance, will eat right through that. They're good for IPA, but they're not good for acetone. So just, I don't want to sit here, particularly when I'm talking about things like caustic chemicals and their reaction to different types of rubber, and give you some type of expert advice that I frankly can't, because I'm not an expert in these things. So I'm just going to say, do your research. Know what chemicals you're handling, and read about how to handle them and treat them with respect, because it's the second that you stop treating them with respect that you burn all of your hair off, and like if you're lucky, that's all that happens. Alright guys, well, it has been a fantastic couple of hours. We've gotten a lot done, so you gotta ask, oh, by the way, good to see you, White Wolf. Thanks for coming in, man. Yes, also proper ventilation. Don't breathe this shit in. Don't breathe in the resin either. I will say that people overstate the toxic nature of the resin most times, but still, don't huff it. For the love of God, and don't drink it. I don't even know why I gotta say that. About how long does it take to print out a full set of those hills? The hill that I painted today, this one right here, this is about a 12-hour print at 0.2. Of course, I'm not focused now, because I changed my focus to super close. Super close! Oh, God! There we go. This was about a 12-hour print. There are a few hills in the set that are significantly larger than this. They're multi-part. Each part is probably 12 to 13 hours to print. So you're going to spend a day printing a big hill. You're going to spend half a day printing a medium hill. You're going to spend 4 to 6 hours printing a small hill. Flavolicious is absolutely correct, though, in that is going to depend on the settings that you're using. I will say that the times I'm talking about are for printing at a layer height of 0.2, which is a pretty common utility layer height. If you want to get more detailed and go down to like 0.12, 0.06, you're going to double to triple your print time because you're doubling to tripling the number of layers that you're actually printing. I recommend 0.2 for the hills, by the way. Honestly, it looks great. If you go any lower than that, you're going to hit diminishing returns almost immediately. I recommend 0.2 very strongly. This is 0.2. This one that I just printed. Let me get zoomed in on it so you can see. Oh man, it's really hard to see the print lines like this. Hang on, let me see if I can focus it just right. It's not going to show them, is it? No matter how I try to focus. But this is 0.2, and you can definitely see the print lines in person, but not much. It's print lines, I feel like, are a problem that is bigger in people's head than it is in real life. Laying down the 3D printing laws. That's right. Before you print, think, what would Thunderhead do? And then slap yourself in the face, because what the fuck are you doing what I would do for? How much does that cost in materials? Almost nothing. Almost nothing, Leafback. We're talking cents. You're right, Thunderhead would drink a beer. Thunderhead is out of beer, or Thunderhead would be drinking a beer right now. Yeah, it's been snowing. I can't even get to the goddamn store. It's crazy. I was shoveling snow all morning. But, yeah, price-wise, like this isn't even $1. This is less than $1. I'd like 70 cents, and I'm being pretty generous with that. This is almost nothing. Yeah, usually a roll of filament is going to run you $20 to $30. US dollars, we're talking more like $14 to $18. Yeah, most of the costs associated with the printer are going to be the printer itself. Upgrade parts, if that's something that you're interested in doing, which a lot of people are. And then just maintenance. You're going to wind up going through some PTFE tubing. You're going to wind up probably buying some new nozzles. But if I were to compare the amount of money that I've made, even casually using my... I'm not talking about the stuff that I've been selling through Thunderhead Studio, through Steel Warrior Studios, which I've made some money on. I'm talking just like printing the occasional thing for somebody and selling it for $10. You do that a couple of times a year, and over the course of a year, you can pay off everything you've put into the printer. Like, it's... I don't think people understand how economical these machines really can be, particularly when you're talking about something like the Ender 3, where it's $180. Flavolicious is absolutely correct. It's almost impossible for an FDM printer to not break even, unless you're a spaz. And this is not to besmirch the spazzes of the world, or my spazzy brethren out there, spazzing all over the damn place, apparently unable to operate a simple 3D printer. But there are definitely the cadre of people who pick up something like the Ender 3, and the first thing goes wrong, and they can't figure out what it is within 10 minutes, and they declare that it's a piece of shit machine and no one should ever use it, and then they sell it on a Facebook group for like $50. By the way, if you see one of those posts, snap that shit up. I've seen people get Ender 3s with rolls of filament for like $150. If you see one, get it. Get it. Because chances are the person who says it's a piece of shit and it'll never work is just an idiot. And if you're one of those people, well, I'm sorry I called you an idiot. But it's still probably true. Oh, no. Software. All the software you need to use, you can get for free. Cura is free. If you want to pay for something like Simplify 3D to do your slicing for you, I mean, you can. You're still not paying a whole lot, honestly. If we're talking 3D design software, well, let me put it this way. How much money do you think for those of you who know me, for those of you who know my work over the last few months or so, make a guess how much money I've spent on software? There are no wrong answers. Just give me a number. Based on the quality of the things that I've produced and the amount of it that I've produced, how much have I spent on software? Well, we've got $0 and $200. $75. Okay, so we're all over the map, pretty much. It's closer to 0 than anything else. It really is. Significantly less than $75. I hesitate to say that it's 0 because I have paid for a couple things here and there, but it's like maybe $20, maybe $20. I do most of my design work in Fusion 360, which is free for hobbyists for a while, and I just put in with Autodesk and said, hey man, I'm starting to run kind of a little business here. I'm kind of like a startup, right? Yeah, and they're like, yeah, sure, here, have the software for free forever. I think it's free until I earn like $100,000 a year using the software, which, man, I should have that problem. That's the kind of problem you want to have. I'll tell you what, when I make $100,000 in 3D printing and design using Fusion 360, I'll go ahead and I'll kick Autodesk a fucking pittance of a few $100s to pay for that software. But the point of what I'm saying is you can do all of this almost for free. If you're willing to put in the time and the effort to learn Blender, you'll never spend a fucking penny. And Blender can do everything that I've done. It's a little more obtuse at times, but it can do every single bit of it. Alright. Yeah, exactly. They give me a nice goal there. You know what? The IRS busts me back down to 60 grand. I'll still pay $500 to Autodesk for the software that I made that money with. I'm perfectly fine with that. I have no issues with it whatsoever. I should be so damn lucky. Play and Win, you are absolutely on the money. By the way, what's up, man? How you doing? You gonna play some BattleTech next week? I got Play and Win started on BattleTech recently. He's coming up for WalesCon, and he's been digging into the rulebooks lately. We're gonna do some probably Tabletop Simulator next week. That should be a good time. I'm looking forward to that. I'm looking forward to WalesCon, man. That's gonna be great. That's gonna be great. I'd like to have some more cameras set up by late June when that happens, when everybody's up here for the multi-day gaming session. It could be fun to maybe stream a couple of games. I don't know if that's going to happen. It's just kind of on my list of things I'd like to do. But, I mean, I really would like to stream some actual tabletop games in the future. Alright, Kat, will you go get some food? I need to go do the exact same thing. I am hungry. I'm fading fast. If you'd watch, that's all that matters. Cataphract. No, I like the Cataphract because of what it represents. WJ, you just hit a prompt for me, man. I could sit here and talk about the Cataphract for the next while. Kat, thank you so much for coming out. Thank you for helping me out in the stream. Thank you for modding. Thank you for all of your support. Everybody, please go ahead and toss a shout out to Kat Ion. She has been so fantastically helpful to me. She has made all of this possible to one degree or another. It does figure you would miss the entire stream, Althara. Maybe I should do some streams that go later into the night. You know, I'll consider that. Consider that moving forward. The good news is it's all on VOD, and none of it will be muted. I mean, we did this hill, essentially from start to finish, so if you want to see that, that'll all be available. We worked on this here Aerodani Light Horse dropship, which is really roughly painted, but we did it quickly, and I'm calling it good enough for a convention. We got this guy up from essentially nothing using real basic techniques. All in all, it's been a fun stream. I think everybody's had a good time. Alright. Well, I'm gonna go get some food, guys, because I'm I can feel my blood sugar just dropping through the damn floor. Thank you to everybody who's come out today. Thank you for the several subscriptions that popped off today. If you're not following and you've enjoyed what you've seen, please remember to give me a follow so you'll get pinged when I pop back up. And yes, join the Discord, please. We are constantly posting miniature pictures and projects and everything that we're working on over in the Discord, not to mention announcements for the stream moving forward. I'd like to remind everybody that we will not have a stream this Sunday because I will be at Genghis Khan playing in a scenario game, and then we'll be picking back up on Tuesday, and I'll go ahead and post what I'll be working on Tuesday in the next 24 hours or so you guys will know what to prepare for. What can I say? What can I say? What is there to say at this point of the stream? I could say thank you. I could say thank you to each and every one of you. And you know what? Thank each and every one of you. I appreciate you coming out. But I think I'm just going to say I'm fucking hungry. The link, Wolfdog, should be just a little bit up in the chat. If you look there, that's the link to the Discord. Thank you, Flavolicious. Much, much appreciated. Guys, thank you again for coming out. That's like the 4th time I've thanked you, so you know I'm fucking serious. Next stream will be Tuesday, the 18th at 5 p.m. Mountain Time. We'll have some more mechs for you then. We'll probably have a little bit more terrain. Hopefully, I believe I will have the final pieces of the upcoming Hextech Trinity City Raised Highway to paint for you right in time for it to be made available for sale. I'm really excited about that. I hope you are too. I will see you guys next week.